I can't say it much better than what that screen just said right there. Needforseat.com and use code SMITEMAX when you get there. If you go to Need for Seat, it's going to let you choose pretty much any region that you live in order to make sure that you get a Maxnomic near you. And I can say with a lot of certainty, they are very comfortable. I sit in mine quite literally all of the time nowadays, and it is something that has been a very lifesaver. It's very comfy. Leans back really nice. Agra, speaking of leaning, well, we have you on the desk. Just a little askew, right, as things go forward. I don't know if people saw it there on Twitter, but
listen, man, I'm trying my best, okay? I've got duct tape on the camera. I've got pillows underneath to hold up the tripod. It is resistant to all change. This is what you guys get, okay? So, look, if you want me to have a more upright camera, you guys need to be buying more gems, clearly, because that's what we need in order to make it happen around here.
Actually, make it come directly for us. Use your Twitch Prime sub, or if you just want to subscribe to the channel, like it's up there, that direction, over there. Hit that button, and we appreciate that. Plus, there's cool emotes. Look, you could spam your favorite team's emotes. It's something that I think's worthwhile for you, and it will save aggro. It's not actually the camera that's tilted. It's his apartment. It's sinking.
I'm getting nauseous. No, wait, you sitting here all the time. I know. I got to get the floors fixed. No, I'm not. The house is fine, everybody. It's the camera that I can't get to work.
I don't know. You might need to get the structure checked. We'll go at it with a level one day and figure it out. Either way, we're about to get into the dragons and the kings here. We just saw the titans 2-0 the Valkyries. And this is one aggro that could be a really fun set. The last time they played, I believe the Kings were able... No, the Kings didn't quite come out on top. They did make some things awkward for the Dragons. It was like the first set where we saw the Dragons what felt like pushed to the limit. But it was still a 2-0 at the time. So do you think that it's kind of evolved? I feel like we've seen the Kings get a lot better since then, and the Dragons kind of slipping up a little more lately.
Yeah, agreed. I see it the same way. The Kings have continued to improve. The Dragons, I don't know if they've been slipping as much as they just haven't been playing at that same level as of late. I don't think that they're incapable of reaching that level once again. And we see it all the time, man, where these teams, they get off to these hot starts and they start to relax a little bit, understand that they might just be playing better than everybody else and don't bring that same intensity to their practice or to the game day. I think playing against a team like the Kings, who I know the Dragons have a lot of respect for, I think that's going to bring out their A game. I expect to see the Jade Dragons at their best today.
I think this is going to be a very interesting one, and specifically we have to look at it because this is what we saw on Thursday, but PandaCat, right? The first game that they played up against the Valkyries was a little awkward, but it was that Neath-Chronos combo that I think caused a little trouble, but it didn't cause that much trouble for PandaCat. PandaCat soloed this man's out and absolutely decimated. I think actually the only reason he ended up dying in this lane during the laning phase would be because of Neath ults that came through, but then the Chiron came in and aggro. That's where things really took off for PandaCat.
Yeah, that cleanse was just nasty, man. And I kind of thought that this Chiron might just be the PandaCat special. Turns out it's a little bit more than that this pick is truly for real. But if Chiron's in the meta and you've got PandaCat on your team, you're feeling good about your chances moving forward because this guy looks so good on this pick really consistently. I think he has total mastery of the way this pick should be played.
I have to give a lot of shout-outs just because he conveniently showed up in that highlight reel, but Sam as well on that Mercury. It just felt like a lot of openings were made there for the Dragons, and a lot of things that were created, and a lot of it came out of this duo lane success that was built here for them on Thursday. Ended up helping them win that set, now finds them in an interesting spot again going up against the Kings. Now they're in a group with the Scarabs and the Warriors, and so this is where things get interesting. We even have PandaCat ready to talk around and kind of figure this out, and this is one that I think is very important, I would say, for you, PandaCat, being able to win this one, trying to go to playoffs, like, again, the Warriors, the Scarabs, teams that you've been able to best in the past or have given you some trouble in the past in the face of the Scarabs. Are you looking at this as a must-win, or are you looking at this as just another game and you know that you're going to be able to make it to the playoffs no matter what?
I think we try to win every one of our games, and we have equal respect for all teams. That honeymoon phase with all the new teams where some people are still getting used to playing with one another is kind of over, and teams are really starting to solidify. So you got to take everyone as seriously as you can, and just got to share everyone equal amounts of respect, and just prep as hard as you can and try to win every game that you can.
Max, you kind of kicked off the Chiron week that we saw this week that really looked like that character is starting to dominate. But what is it? They're just still in your style, or do you think you're still the Chiron king?
Nobody's better than me on Chiron. Let's be real.
Well, then it should be good this week because he's winning every game. So you guys are in the clear.
That's right.
Yeah, short, sweet, to the point, exactly what you need, right? You're getting in there as Chiron and doing well. You're going to be going up against Netroid and Genetics, though. And again, last time you guys played the Kings, it was a longer game, but it wasn't necessarily a bad game for you. You were still able to win it out. Do you expect this to be another kind of set like that, where it's a little more difficult to find that win, but something that you can still eke out at the end?
Yeah, I think this set's going to be a lot more difficult than our first set. Like I said, the whole getting to know one another on like the team and stuff, and those first couple weeks are past. So a lot of the teams are just way more comfortable with one another, just know their strategies much more well, I suppose, than they did early on. So I think it's going to be a close set. I think it's going to be a good set. I think all the players on that team are really good. So.
Well, I'm excited to watch it. I know Agra's excited to watch it. I'm sure everybody's excited to watch it. So we'll let you go get set up. Thanks for your time, man. Good luck in your games, and we'll see you playing real soon.
Thank you.
Other than that, though, Agra, we're now in this position where the Kings are equally at this point where they've been looking really good. Same, like the Dragons looked really good. It feels like two Titans that are going to be clashing against each other here, and we have to look at that duo lane where Genetics has warranted a lot of bans, but Netroid kind of stepped over to this team. Like he performed really well last year for Sanguine. He's performing really well this year for the Kings. I think he's going to be giving the Dragons a little bit of trouble.
I think so too, because this duo lane has given basically every team they've played against a lot of trouble. The Kings have the option and the luxury of playing through all three of the different lanes, and Twig has really been able to take advantage of that, because every time he comes over to duo, you feel like Netro and the Genetics are going to be ready to make a play. These two getting their synergy up and this high, this early on in their time playing together is something that's really impressed me, because Genetics is definitely, you know, this is not a combination that has barely played against each other, let alone played together before. And I think that's a testament to both of these players and how well they end up working together. They're a dynamic dual lane to watch, and they're going up against the best dual lane of all time today in PBM at PandaCat, so it should be fireworks.
I think it was maybe we were talking to Twig. I can't quite remember exactly who it was on the Kings, but we were having that exact discussion with him, and he even admitted they were surprised that Netroid and Genetics got on as quickly as they did on board to this duo lane synergy. It has really taken the team by storm, or at least the league by storm even, because of the way that they've been able to dominate things. Did play some of that Chiron earlier this week, but as we saw in the On Her highlights, I think this is one where both of these hunters have so many picks, and they're so good, and they're the same thing for their supports. It's so good that the duo lane should be a hot spot. I think every spot on the map is going to be interesting. I'm really excited for the Sam versus Twig conversation as well, especially with the way they play. But I'm really looking forward to what could be either an insanely explosive duo lane, or it might be tame because they know that the other team's going to be aggressive. I find it hard to believe, though, that Genetics or PBM might pump the brakes at all in this game if they think they might get an advantage out of it.
No, that's just not their style, man. They're going to be putting the pedal to the metal all the time. That's what these guys are known for doing. And I think this matchup is just going to be so much fun to watch, because the Dragons, when they're playing at their best, come in with such great strategy for how they want to play the map. They're always ready for what the other team is going to be doing, and they're always going to be responding or forcing the other team to respond. But the Kings have been much the same way. They have come in and been really, really consistent in the way that they've played these games. The way they played the map has really impressed me thus far, so I'm excited to see what they've cooked up for what the Dragons are going to throw their way.
I'm excited to watch what they're going to be able to do. You can see a lot of consternation, I think, coming into this one. It's kind of the same conversation we've been having. Like, as much as it is just a one loss at this point, and it's still the very beginning, it's the first game that either of these have played in the group stage, it is a lot of weight if you're 0-1 for next week's games to only go your way. No slip-ups. You have to make sure that you're going to be successful. You don't want to be tied at like 1-2 at the bottom and then learn that the team you lost to is the team that is going to be taking your spot because they now have the head-to-head. So I think that's something that there's going to be going through their minds as they start it up. King's going to be your first pick for this first game. And I'm really excited, like, the way the picks and bans have evolved over just the last couple of days. I mean, we've seen a lot of Yanis bans, Athena bans, Sobek bans. Those all make sense. Tiamat makes sense. Then we're starting to see some Neith show up in there. Ymir, Yamoja are, like, on the fence. Gilgamesh every now and then. And this Fenrir, who has been jumping to the top, which I actually would think the Dragons would want more than anything since PBM and Sam can play him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a lot of overlap actually between the god pools of these two teams. I think that Genetics and Mike have a lot of the same god pool. You're looking at Yemoja, you're looking at Fafnir, you're looking at Ymir. Those are the types of picks they like to play. You already covered the synergy there between Sam and Twig and what they like to play in the jungle. Netrioid been playing a lot of Heim, Chiron on her, the same stuff that Panda's been playing, though that's kind of the same for every hunter. So that one's kind of the same. I just think that it's going to be fun. I was going to wonder if there was going to be a Giannis ban coming from the Camelot Kings up against Herowind, and I think they made the right call taking that away.
I mean, he's out here getting banned against people that aren't Herowind. It makes sense for it to get banned against the guy who was running it, even when it wasn't seen as that great. And same thing, BMT, the only person, not maybe the only who's playing Raw, but one of the few who's been playing it consistently lately. I think the Warriors played it yesterday, looked pretty good on that one as well. The Dragons are going to take that one away from him, and it's going to be this Chiron pick that has taken the league by storm this week. That immediately jumps up to the top. And, I mean, it's kind of this two-edged sword, right? You get it for yourself, and Netroid should look good on it, but you also strip it away from Panda Cat. It's a really solid pick, effectively a fourth ban while still being something that they're happy with.
Yeah, I think that this is exactly what the Kings wanted, is to make sure that they get Panda Cat off of one of his comfort picks. I think that this is going to continue to be the case, is that this rising sort of prioritization towards this Chiron. It was the same with On Her towards the beginning of the year. Teams took a while to get used to first picking it. Now they end up first picking the Chiron, and I think they're ahead of schedule. So this is a good kitty cam here. I believe this is Captain Twig's cat in the background, and that's a cute cat, no doubt about that.
It is a very, like, not only the cat shot, but also every time, so whenever I say in any of the Inside Apparel reads, hey, you can get a roll logo on the shoulder, that's exactly what I mean, right there. You can see it's the only thing on Twig that you can watch. That's what you're looking for, and that one's going to be your jungle, your assassin, what have you. Of course, the kitty cat taking the league by storm. That's the more important part that comes through. Twig's blocking it, so now it doesn't matter anymore. And so we can look at, instead the picks and bans, Ymir and Tiamat. I completely forgot about Tiamat through all of this. There were so many good picks that were still available. And that's going to be maybe the first time that we've seen specifically the Kings get this Tiamat. I'll double check myself on that one. No, they've played her once already. They won with her the one time they got her. So it's not the first time. And that's a monumental pick to be able to grab up.
It is, and you know that Big Man has been such a playmaker for this team in the mid lane. I've been so impressed with what he's done for the Camelot Kings this year, and to give him a playmaking god like Tiamat makes a lot of sense. But he's got to be able to be the aggressor in these team fights, and having something like a Chiron alongside it to give you long-range backup damage, to give you an additional cleanse to the CC immunity that already exists in the Tiamat kit, I think is a really nice pairing between this back line of the Kings.
Now this is me completely trailing off in my mental, but we need a game Kings versus Bolts. It's not going to happen in the group stage, maybe sometime eventually, just so the Barra Cat Cam and the Twig Cat Cam can go up against each other there in the middle of the picks and ban screen. It's going to be the Osiris, of all things, banned out here by the Dragons, followed by the Scylla ban for the Kings. And, of course, I misspell it as I type it out. But Scylla has kind of been, I want to say, like, on the back burner. Like, she exists. Nothing really bad happened to her. But there's other mages to pick over her, and I think that's kind of the conversation that's been happening. But with Giannis gone, now with Scylla gone, like, does that favor Tiamat because of the matchup, or is this really just shots at Heroin?
I think it's more just shots at Heroin, just making sure that he's not getting some of his comfort picks in that mid lane. I'd expect Raijin would be the next mage that I would want to take off the board here from the Camelot Kings. Yeah. He's been seeing a lot more play in that mid lane and has looked pretty good during it. Merlin would be the other one. I think that you're probably banning one of those two, but Hurry's probably pretty happy with either one of those two, whatever one does get through from this position. So maybe the Kings just decide not to take one of those two things away and instead look to ban out either Sam or Fine OK, depending on where they think this Gilgamesh has potential to go.
It's going to be the Soul here. I was actually going to throw another mid laner out to the ring because a lot of those that get banned are great, but I see Gilgamesh and Displacement. I see Fafnir and stun setup, I should say, Serket as well as her setup. And Hurry's played a lot of Kukul Khan. I wouldn't necessarily mind him. I don't know the matchup, I guess, in mid versus Tiamat. I've never played against Tiamat as Cuckoo, but it's one of those things that I think fits well with the team. We'll have to see where they go. As out of left field, Hu Yi comes into this one. Not the first time, I believe, that he's been played, but it's interesting enough because he's been so far and few in between.
Yeah, he has, and when you think about when you'd want to play Hou-Yi, it's in the crit meta, and he didn't see a whole lot of play during crit meta. Now that we're potentially out of it, yeah, now's the time to pick Hou-Yi. Just feel like that maybe you can play a little bit aggressively up against that Chiron, but a lot of that option would have been up against that knock-up that you would have that interrupt his dash. Now you can't do it.
Well, speaking of firsts, this has been a week 4. We've had 6 gods that have had their first games play this week, and now I can tick that over to 7. Cthulhu, who was a huge player in the end of Season 7, kind of disappeared entirely this year. And now he's going to be making it back alongside that Naja, a signature pick for Captain Twig. We'll get to the Merlin, because you had mentioned that earlier. We'll get to that a little bit later. This Cthulhu Naja, the Naja feels at home for the Kings, but Cthulhu, I mean, where has he been? And is it the pick to take in here against what I'm guessing is now going to be the Gilgamesh?
Yeah, I don't really love this Cthulhu pick here for variety, because you think about the gods that would hard counter Cthulhu the most. Hou-Yi has got to be near the top of that list, because Mark of the Golden Crow gives you percentage damage on missing HP, and Cthulhu just gets a ton of HP whenever he ults, and with chin size now in the meta more so than crit, I feel like Cthulhu's time might have passed before he even got a chance to show up. But he still does all those things really well. I mean, he still dives, he still creates a lot of space, he still is hard to kill in the early to mid stages of the game. I just think that come late game, one Hou-Yi mark and then a Coerce on top of him, because of that buff from PBM, you're going to be feeling really strong about that extra attack speed. Hou-Yi's only weakness is his low attack speed. Give him some of that. Maybe this could be a problem here for variety.
I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with it, especially because like, Osiris King Arthur banned away there from the Dragons. I mean, they took a lot of the quote-unquote great solo lane options away, and even with buffs, like, I'm going to keep saying it, Bologna just got buffed. I'm going to keep rooting for her until she gets picked up. She's one of my favorites to play over there, but she just hasn't found her way home despite some of these changes. Gilgamesh, I think we've seen in the jungle exclusively. It'll be interesting to see this matchup. Cthulhu locked in for the first time. Let's go down to game 1 and see what happens.
Plenty of action lies in store for the Camelot Kings versus the Jade Dragons. My name is Dolson. Mifflin's with me. Doug working alongside us to bring you the action here. And Miff, this is a big one here in this group for the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings, arguably the top 2 teams here in this group. And so a loss here on either side, you don't see doom and gloom over the horizon, but maybe all but securing yourself in the Phase 1 playoffs with a win here in this one. And with all of that on the line, we get a Cthulhu, we get ourselves a Hou-Yi on the other side. Plenty to look at here as far as drafts go. And Mifflin, you muted yourself again, and I can't believe it.
Oh,
I mean, 2 days in a row, baby.
So
Let's go!
Oh, look,
Yeah.
Dave, I don't want to hear it, but I was doing such good analysis before this started up. Like, all right, anyway, let's get
you
into
probably
it.
said a bunch of
Cthulhu.
wrong stuff, and you can correct
Okay,
yourself
yeah.
now, right? You get a
I
second
had time
chance
to correct
at it.
myself a little bit. Yeah, so
Go
Cthulhu,
ahead, Cthulhu.
incredibly strong pickup. I think that it's going to fit into this draft really well as a CC core, as just a great way to burn beads, or if anyone's beads are burned, well, infinite knockup's going to be pretty strong going forward. So Captain Twig, all those single target inside of his CC should be able to set up for variety incredibly well. Genetics is going to have some great beads burning potential as well. So the Camelot Kings, I think, are going to be a little bit more so slated towards the mid-game team fight, whereas the Jade Dragons have a little bit more emphasis on the early. You want to make sure Hou-Yi gets off to a good start as an aggressive hunter. Sanford Soccer on Surket should be Jazzberry jamming it the entire match. Look, I expect the Dragons to be really gas pedaling it from minute 1.
Well, variety has gone towards Warriors Axe here. We'll have to see what the upgrade looks like a little bit later on, because there's definitely some good potential for allowing some safety in your teammates should CC hit them, depending on which direction you choose to go there. So we'll keep our eyes on that one. Netrioid down to half HP. Some early skirmishes happen over here in the duo lane. Panicat goes for the up-down, but really just for minion clear here at this point. Now on the other side, one of the gods that I shouted out was Hou-Yi. The desk wondered why we might be seeing this pick here. You know, sometimes once or twice in the crit meta, maybe we would see Hou-Yi come through, but it wasn't all that often. And we see him here now, Mifflin, and a bit of a different starter item on the menu for Panda Cat as well.
Yeah, The Shroud has really good upgrades, and for now, should give him a slight benefit insofar as sustain, because Netroid elects to go for the Bluestone Transcendence build, no lifesteal on his end. Maybe Panda Cat's just going to try and not pick up the Aussie, but still go for the Transcendence, so he wants to get a little bit of lifesteal somewhere. It's going to be very interesting to see where he goes with this build. We have seen some Icavale pickups that does synergize incredibly well with Ho Yi because of how the Mark of the Golden Crow works. But Panda Cat's one to play whatever Panda Cat feels like playing, all right? He's not really concerned with the meta.
Look at this from Sanford Soccer. It's an early taunt in onto Variety. Variety does not have his dash, and the Jade Dragons, they'll grab themselves first blood over onto the Gilgamesh in the solo lane.
And that was how you dealt with Cthulhu way back when he was picked every single game. You want to make sure he's not getting that ultimate offer free. You want to make sure he isn't able to just free farm and then become that late game team fight monster already. Sanford Soccer making his presence known on the right-hand side of the map. An early back to finish off Warrior top eye, and then immediately making a gank happen on the right-hand side. But now Sam has to continually find that pressure. Surprised to see the Jade Dragons don't at least attempt to step up and steal that blue buff. They know that the timers are going to be relatively synced, but instead, realizing that Variety has teleport, doesn't want to take a risky fight, just walks away with first blood.
Genetics grabs a stun onto PBM here, and Twig is there on the follow-up. The Windfire Wheels will lock PBM in place just a little bit longer. Is the damage there? Not just yet. Oh, it's a great wall from Genetics, but PBM lives on. Has he bought enough time for the rest of the Jade Dragons to work in and find extra damage? Sanford Soccer chases no further. It's a 1-2 punch from Captain Twig, Genetics, and Big Man Tings out of the mid lane to grab a kill for the Kings.
That's a tough one for PBM. Loses out on the Relic. Loses out on a ton of farm there. Doesn't make it to the mid-wave at all for any of that golden XP. Going to be a little while until he ticks over to level 5. Genetics already got the ultimate available to him. Keep your eyes on PBM. Fafnir's a god that you want to make sure you're at least staying relatively even. He's not out of it just yet, but this could affect how he looks towards his itemization. Sometimes you see these Fafnirs go for a little bit more damage instead already. PBM going for the tank boots.
Worth mentioning, Mifflin, how rare it is to see not only an early gank over here in the solo lane, but on Variety. Variety has not died in 4 straight SPL games. And before that, if you count the last 6, he's died 1 time in the last 6 games. And there was 1 death in a matchup against the Solar Scarabs. 0 deaths in the last 4 games. So the fact that the first blood in this game is on Variety is definitely something to look at there as well. This guy on the front line has been playing his mind out, and that's helped the rest of this Camelot Kings team find their footing. Blue buff respawning. Sanford Soccer is here. Captain Twig is as well. It's going to be a 2v2 early damage over onto Variety, but it's a beautiful lockdown from Captain Twig. The whirlwinds fly on through from Fine OK here. PBM has joined the fray as well. Windfire Wheels locks Fine OK into the sky, but down comes the Gilgamesh. No deaths just yet. PBM not electing to tank up this tower any further, but Genetics has found the freeze. He's found the wall, but Fine OK will leap away.
Genetics still trying to move forward, seeing if maybe he can catch out Sanford Soccer, but no one else stepping up with him. That should spell the end of this engagement. If he goes too far forward, could have the eye of the Jade Dragons turn onto him. I think had Twig waited a little bit longer on the Windfire Wheels so that Variety could have got value out of his ultimate, they may have been able to find the kill, but instead removes the enemy from the playfield. Cthulhu just has to sit there and spin his wheels.
Blue buff confirmed by Genetics here, but how much will he pay for the securing of the blue buff on this side of the map? Sanford Soccer walks on in. This is a tanky Ymir already into this game, and Sanford Soccer will pick up the kill there. So Genetics may be okay there, Mifflin, shredding down just a little bit of golden XP away from Fine OK. He does end up going down. Now Sanford Soccer's on the board.
Genetics steps so far forward there with no backup. Just an interesting decision to step up. Hurrywind was still in mid. There was no way that he was going to be able to get there in time and help out. Just a strange blue buff invade attempt that results in a loss of life. Now that gives PBM a slight opportunity to catch up and farm. Still about half a level down on his opposition. Genetics isn't going to miss out on too much here. Is still going to be benefiting from the lead.
Netroid and Panda Cat have been left alone over here in the duo lane for a little while. That's allowed Panda Cat to grab about a 1-level lead. We'll use the ultimate just to clear out that wave. Interested to see how this Ho Yi continues to work throughout the rest of this game. Some objectives secure, a little bit of damage as well with the Sunbreaker, so that's something to look out for. Should objectives get started up by the Camelot Kings on the left-hand side of the map, Panda Cat likely able to have something to say about it. PBM looking for a red buff invade, unsuccessful. unless he was able to grab the side camps. Big Man Ting's just going to work his way away there. PBM maybe did not grab the red buff there, just making sure that Big Man Ting's not able to work his way back. But still some action maybe in the mid lane as hi-rez starting to work his way back in. PBM has found the stun, and there's no mana on this Tiamat, but Captain Twig Genetics lurking close by. It's a blink right back through from Twig here. Wall up and down from Genetics, and PBM will usher his mid laner away.
Twig immediately uses the Windfire Wheels to get himself out of there. Now Genetics too far forward, caught by the winds of Shamash.
And look at the collapse here from the Jade Dragons. Captain Twig left alone amongst 4. And hi-rez picks up his first kill of the game. Variety rotates on over from solo lane. He goes big here, looking for a little damage on the back end. PBM has to de-transform, but not much else here. Variety fruitless in his rotation to the mid lane.
No, zero value of that descent into madness. Instead, maybe dissuades a little bit of aggression, but sticking around is Genetics, takes a lot of his damage. Variety trying to finish off PBM. Can he do it?
PBM's still here? No, he can't. hi-rez grabs another, and this Merlin's starting to heat up here in game number 1. Final K rotates to mid lane, and he'll get some value there. 203 on the Gilgamesh. All this action happening in an area where Final K has been able to rotate in and find some value for his movements here. He's impacted 100% of the kills so far.
Man, the Camelot Kings keep digging in their heels. They keep stepping up to take these fights even after they lose out on these small skirmishes. They aren't willing to cede any ground. It's giving the Jade Dragons a lot of time to make these rotations. Final K shows up actually 20 human seconds later than Variety does, but still is able to make his value known just because the Camelot Kings are kind of just sticking around in these fights a little bit longer than they should be. Now, 8 minutes in, closer to 9, 5-1 is the slash line, and Golden XP should be swinging in favor of the Jade Dragons. Tough one, man. I think that the Kings are trying to maintain this pace for the early fight, but their mid-game team fight is so strong, I think they can just wait it out a little bit longer.
That's something the pacing will soon dictate. We know that the Jade Dragons like to play this way. PBM looked at by Captain Twig and a few others in the mid lane here, but he'll be able to leap away. How about this Fafnir pick? I did not expect to see Fafnir first picked overall, but over this past weekend, Mifflin, since the restart, this pick has not only found some value, but plenty of pick ban priority. I'll let you gather your thoughts on that one, as there's a Windfire Wheels over onto Sanford Soccer and a transformation from PBM as well. Winds of Shamash will keep Twig right where he is, and Final K adds another assist.
Keep your eyes on Genetics, who has the flank. Big Man Tings finds Sanford Soccer, but the fight continues.
Then hi-rez has to flicker away here as Variety and Genetics pour the damage into the Merlin. Maybe Variety able to get some value out of this descent into madness, and he sure does. Big Man Tings on 3, and Final K has to leap away. But the cavalry's here as Netroid makes his way from the left side of the map. It's all but a deicide here. Camelot Kings right back in it.
4 for 0, and they'd cleared out the Pyromancer just a couple minutes ago, taking the team fight inside mid to open up an opportunity for the neutral objective. The Kings knew it all along, 10 entire minutes, looking for a team fight just like that, and finally it comes to fruition. The Kings able to pull ahead here, but it's not that far. 500 experience, a couple hundred gold. This game is still deadlocked.
And for a minute there, you're worried if you're a Kings player or a Kings fan, because hi-rez was off to a fantastic start on this Merlin out of mid. We've seen games where Merlin starts to stack up those kills, the golden experience just flowing through the mid lane, and then Final K even in that conversation as well. But the fact that Big Man Tings was able to pick up 3 and an assist there in that fight is absolutely massive. Maybe Spear of Desolation playing a bit of role on some of the cooldowns he was able to get off in that fight. The Tiamat had been quiet, Mifflin, but found his moment to strike.
And now with a 2-level lead, Tiamat is going to be allowed to jump in a lot more consistently, and that's where Tiamat is at her best, when she can play that aggressive style. Big Man Tings is going to be the focal point for his team in these next coming team fights. Watch him. If he's able to close gap on a hi-rez or Panda Cat, he can play that dive role with the rest of his squad, and then all of a sudden, the Camelot Kings draft turns into the spearhead style.
I'm going to look back at exactly what happened here. Is the ranged shot from Big Man Tings that opened up the killing, and then a quick burst of damage to follow up. And it's moments like this where you see Big Man Tings re-engaging in on the fight, and then the up-down, Mifflin, exactly as you're talking about. You need to be willing and able to jump into those fights to find max value on a pick like this, and Big Man Tings definitely doing so. I think Big Man Tings unfairly quiet in the conversation of some of the best mid laners in this league. He has consistently been playing towards the top. One of the big reasons that this Camelot Kings team has found recent success.
Yeah, he's been on teams in the past where he had to play as that role player, just kind of filling the slot surrounded by these stars, but now here on the Camelot Kings, he really has come into his own. He's been that aggressive player, consistently finding fruition on his engagements, always farming up effectively, and now here he's trying to prove it up against the Jade Dragons, and already 2 levels up on Hurrywin. I think he's making a great argument for himself.
We see plenty of action, Myth, over on the right-hand side of the map so far. And only Netrioid rotating over into that fight to get the 4th and final kill is the action that we've seen from the Hunter so far here into this game. That's opened up PandaCat to get that Transcendence online, stacked up, but mirrored in items outside of the starter items is Netrioid there. With the Gold Fury online, maybe we start to see a little bit more emphasis on left.
We should do, but right now neither ADC has a real distinct advantage. XP slightly favoring PandaCat at this point. Teamfight presence should be favoring PandaCat as well, as he's got the fantastic AoE ultimate to create a no-play zone around these objectives, but Netrioid's damage cannot be slept on. Chiron's early to mid-game cannot be slept on here in Season 8. So I think it's going to come down to which squad is able to find an early rotation, an early gank to just slip the fight slightly in their favor. Keep your eyes on the junglers here. Twig has not made any qualms trying to get involved here, not made any issues being willing to trade out his life for any single bit of ground he can gain for his team. Wouldn't be surprised if that's where we started off.
Twig has showed up to mid lane a couple of times. 2 out of 5 affected kills for the Camelot Kings jungler. Sanford Soccer affecting 6 out of 6. So the Circuit has been in the fray at every turn here so far in this game. Twig taken down early, granted, in that previous fight, so wasn't really able to be online for the rest of the kills that were flowing through. You see this great migration over to the left-hand side of the map now. The solo laners starting to inch their way over as well. Mid laners staying put, but both junglers starting to show some face, mainly Sanford Soccer over here on left. Going to be difficult to find an early engage, but just taking a peek and backing away, not wanting to force the issue, especially with the most important early game objective looming.
And this is an interesting build that Sanford Soccer elects to go for. Normally when we see Circuit locked in, it's an Anchile first overall, but instead, Jotun's Wrath for a little bit of penetration, some CDR, and then immediately into Magi's Blessing to contend with this high CC draft on the side of the Kings. I like it. It's not a ton of survivability, but it's going to help him out mightily once these team fights start off proper. Circuit has to dedicate her body to use that ultimate. Really opens you up to CC. Well, now you got to burn through the Magi's and beads before you're able to chase him out.
There's a small window here, Mifflin, looking at builds continued and noticing that PBM, is 2 levels over Genetics. So in 50 seconds, there will be a Frenzy ready to go as well as a Sunder, but Sprint gets used by Genetics, the only relic he's got over in the mid lane. That'll help Captain Twig leave this fight. Ever so important to get Twig out of that one alive. The Windfire Wheels got used, albeit likely defensively there. That's maybe a bit of team fighting utility that's now gone for the Camelot Kings should the Jade Dragons want to force the issue.
It could be. Pyromancer has time to respawn here, so now there's going to be 2 neutral objectives on the map that the teams are going to have to keep their eyes on. Twig still hasn't made his way back to base, but there's no way the Jade Dragons can know that. Had they known it, could have used that time to move in towards the Cold Fury, the Pyromancer itself, while they have this advantage state. Keep your eyes on the solo laners, Dave. Once Variety starts rotating out or Finocade, that's really going to indicate that these teams are looking to take a true fight around these objectives. As of right now, neither one feeling confident enough to force that engagement. Instead, it still is just waiting for that opportunity, waiting for that pick to open up the door.
They did show face just a minute ago over towards the mid lane. Now both go back on their own respective blue buff sides. Not even respective. Finocade is going to take a bit of a journey here. Look if he can proxy out a wave. Same for Variety. That'll allow them to go back to base and maybe rotate over should they need. Genetics with the sprint, and that's something we mentioned over in the mid lane fight we saw just a minute ago, Mifflin. Sometimes you would see Ymir pick up something like a blink early on here in some of these games, added for extra viability over there in the duo lane. Look for some blink engagements. But the sprint recently, I'd argue more recently, has been seeing more play as far as the first relic goes on these Ymir picks.
Yeah, I was so surprised that Heavenly Agility hasn't been really valued much back in Season 7, Season 8, but now that haste out of the Forger team, the slow immunity as well, going to be very effective up against PBM as well as Hurrywin. It should get a lot of value going forward, going to help out a lot with not only the engage, but also the disengage against gods like Cthulhu who go into Descent into Madness and have to slowly walk you down with their CC. Heavenly Wings should just get you out of his effective range pretty easily.
Maybe a bit of a clash here happening around the Gold Fury. Variety has joined the fight. Fine OK is lurking back behind as well. It's a wall that separates this one by genetics. You got to watch out for this Gilgamesh, Mifflin. We'll be able to talk about it in just a moment. We've seen this pick out of the jungle so often, but Fine OK piloting it out of the solo lane here found some good value so far. Again mentioning 6 out of 6 kills affected by the Gilgamesh out of the solo lane, and looks like no fight will happen, and both teams are happy to separate here in the mid.
No, neither team still has found that opportunity. Genetics and Variety eking their way forward, just trying to spot out the rotations, let their team know where Fine OK, where Hurrywin is headed. But for now, again, it's just both squads. They are so tight at this point of the game. Only 500-ish gold separating them. Experience largely equalized as well. Largest lead in the game being on Big Man Tings, who is still 2 levels up. That's not that massive at this point. Still, it is an advantage, but one that's hard to utilize. So for now, it still is just waiting for that late game phase. Seems like both teams are pretty confident in their ability to team fight come late. So neither one is going to take the risky plays now.
Well, Hurrywin hasn't gone back to base in a little while, but as we stand right now, mirrored builds out of the mid lane, except Big Man Tings has an entire soul gem over Hurrywin. So once this Merlin goes back to base, you have to imagine there's at least a couple tiers of an item ready to go there. The net worth not that disparate, maybe just shy of 1,000 or so. So something to look at. Big Man Tings can find a fight here. Want to jump in, find some burst damage, and the burst damage is onto the Gold Fury right now, and the Jade Dragons attempting to respond, but not quick enough. And after all the tugging and pulling we saw going on, the back and forth, the showing face and then leaving, the Jade Dragons not quick enough to reply to the Fury, and the Camelot Kings will get it for free.
Beads forced out by Pandacat, caught on his jump, lands down, and then goes back up. Has to use his ultimate to create some space, but not enough.
Oh, the Aegis here is going to be fruitless, and Netrioid picks up his 2nd kill of the game. That's about as easy as it gets for the Camelot Kings. You grab a Fury, you rotate to left, there's a Hunter still there, and now Sanford Soccer is caught out in the jungle. Variety descends into madness. Sanford Soccer attempting to escape, and the blink will get used to survive. Sanford Soccer alive on the map, but not alive in this fight. Genetics locked in place by Fine OK, and the Jade Dragons able to trade back at least one.
My man Variety choked the kill, and Sanford Soccer, thankful for it, is able to get on out of there. That is an ADC for support trade. Going to favor the Kings here, or rather the Jade Dragons going forward. Now the Camelot Kings have the tough task of disengaging. Sanford Soccer rejoins the fight from base, but not in time to chase out any kills. Tough one there, man. You got to find those kills. Had Variety been able to pick that one up, it would have been opening the door for the Pyromancer pretty expeditiously. Could even look towards the Giant itself. Unfortunate drop there for the Camelot Kings.
Jade Dragons might still want the Pyromancer here, but the Camelot Kings privy to it. There's a ward down in the FG pit. This is the type of objective where the Jade Dragons, yes, might just reset back away. Variety not happy with that, though. They'll get a little damage onto Sanford Soccer, and look at this. The Camelot Kings will immediately work in, pull the objective for themselves. The Jade Dragons might show some face here, but Variety separating Sanford Soccer out. Looks like the Pyromancer for free over to the Camelot Kings. Down and kills Mifflin, but effectively means nothing here as the Camelot Kings continue to find these objectives.
To the contrary, it's the Camelot Kings who have established themselves the largest lead so far this game. 21 minutes in, and we're looking at about 3,000 gold, 4,000 experience. That's going to be very useful. BMT caught out here low on mana, but has enough to peel out for Genetics. Jade Dragons, if they are able to force anyone back to base with the composition that they have, should be able to shred objectives relatively quickly. Fafnir's buff for his team, as well as the burn potential that Hurrywin has on this Merlin, should all add up to a very quick objectives if they're just given the slightest opportunity. The Camelot Kings seem cognizant of that. That's why they've had so much emphasis on creating space around these objectives. Every single time they step up to the Gold Fury, the Pyromancer, it's Genetics or Variety, sometimes even both just W-keying as deep as they can into the Jade Dragon's jungle, just face-checking it. And if nobody's there, the Camelot Kings, time and time again, have just walked away with these objectives. The Jade Dragons certainly feeling that pressure.
And if we still haven't seen any of those big back-and-forth scraps where the Hunters have been heavily involved, Netrioid has sniped out a couple of kills, one dive onto PandaCat where PandaCat really stood no chance. And it might look like PandaCat's an entire item behind, but he has upgraded his starter item here, whereas Netrioid forewent what we're assuming will be a Bluestone Brooch at some point and has gone Rage in his final spot, so about even as far as Hunter items go here. Maybe what we expected to see out of PandaCat there, Mifflin, the ability to burn down some of those tanky targets with the kin size early in the build.
Yeah, that's going to help out a lot up against this Cthulhu. Goes for a pretty health-heavy build, as well as just being a large, immobile target. Means that he's going to have a very easy time fighting that damage with Mark of the Golden Crow. And how that works, the lower HP someone falls, the more damage each auto attack's going to do. So PandaCat going to be great at tank shredding anyone who gets CC'd in front of him. And the CC core of the Jade Dragons is pretty good. Fine okay with a drop kick. Should be able to stun someone for about a second and a half. Even PBM with a single target, finds a hammer, finds the Sunder, should be able to shred him away pretty easily as well. But it's all single target CC on the side of the Dragons. Not a lot of AoE team fight presence for him.
Hurrywin has been able to go back, finish his Soul Reaver here. Some of that AoE presence will be ticking down the high health targets that the Camelot Kings have as well. Big Man Tings has upgraded his star item here. Hurrywin has not been able to do so. Look at the way, though. We'll go back to that thought. The Camelot Kings positioning themselves around this FG. PandaCat is going to be the first one in to find out. Remember, we talked about the steal potential that this Ho Yi might have. Hurrywin forced to use the beads, the flicker ray as well, but Captain Twig will connect with the wind fire wheels. Down comes the Merlin, but the Aegis will save his life, but not for long. But it's junglers trading out kills with one another. Netrioid's down. Hurrywin, same for him as well. Jade Dragons grouped up here in between the Camelot Kings.
That's such a smart play from the Dragons, realizing they have to match the dive and now regroup. They're looking to step forward. PandaCat forced to use the jump early, isolated, but it's just genetics, and you don't win that 1v1.
Whoa! PandaCat deletes genetics here, and Fine OK continuing his chase. Captain Twig, trying to escape from this fight, will use the beats. Big Man Tings just found a kill on the backline as well. You got two separate engagements here. Camelot Kings winning one, Jade Dragons winning the other. Down goes Twig as well. Big Man Tings not giving up the chase, but PBM has something else in mind. It's a lonely Tiamat with Variety up against three of the Jade Dragons.
Surprised to see that they're not willing to chase out PBM there. Maybe worried about Sanford Soccer making his rotation back into the fight, but that's such an intelligent play from the Dragons there immediately. Captain Twig solos Hurrywin. I mean, he did it all. That was outplay city. Just walks him down. The Hurrywin fear beads off the sash, flickers away immediately, has to walk back in because he doesn't create enough space, or even flickers towards his team, and Twig holds it out the entire time, waiting for that windfire wheels, and the second he gets him up into the air, Variety's there to help him finish off that kill. But meanwhile, the rest of the Dragons say, all right, Hurrywin's a lost cause. No way we peel him out. My man Blue, all of his relics and is still in dire need of them. So instead, they dive into the Camelot Kings backline to separate the fight, and that's where they found their win.
They sure did, and the Camelot Kings looking for a win of their own here around this Fury. It's Oni Fury this time. Jade Dragons close by, and Camelot Kings will get the Fury. But is it for free? Fine OK wants that answer to be no, as he'll drop the Gilgamesh ultimate down, but the surrounding Variety is the best he can do.
Spreads.
Genetics and Netrioid, dual lane for the Kings. They're gone here. Sanford Soccer being looked at by one of the minions of Big Man Tings' team at his Variety. Down low here, the Jade Dragons continue searching for yet another kill.
Nice stun, but not enough. Gets out of there with his increased mobility. Sanford Soccer rejoins the fight, but no CC to be had. Jade Dragons take out two members. The duo lane of Camelot Kings removed for the next 20 or so seconds, and that's a lot of time to work with. Sanford Soccer has to head back to base, with the rest of the Jade Dragons relatively healthy.
Big Man Ting's in a position where he can poke some damage down, but needs to be careful that he doesn't get engaged on by the Jade Dragons. This is a good confidence check for the Jade Dragons. The Pyromancer is available, but they do not care. They will go for the FG instead, a few minutes shy of the Enhanced Fire Giant. Variety lurks around the corner, but look at the health shred that the carries of the Jade Dragons have got. As Polar Bear Mike will eat about half of his HP, he'll leap away, but it looks like Big Man Tings and Variety enough of a threat to force the Jade Dragons back.
And buys just enough time for the rest of their team to respawn as well. Camelot Kings get routed in the team fight, but through the efforts of BMT are able to remain afloat, keep that biggest objective alive. All they get, the Jade Dragons that is a couple of kills, and now it's the Kings looking at the Giant itself.
Well, the tug of war over the FG continues. It's the Camelot Kings on it now. Will the Jade Dragons have a chance to reply? They will not. The Fire Giant over to the Camelot Kings, but a wall from Genex keeps FineOK right where he's at. Sam for Soccer escapes over onto the right-hand side. Variety melted down by PandaCap, and there's a double stun on the backline as the damage has found the backline of the Jade Dragons, but none of it confirmed just yet. Big Man Tings finds the lead, but Sam for Soccer finds the killing spree. Finally, Big Man Tings cleans up one. That's good for the Rampage as the Tiamat finds some damage on the back end of this fight.
He's free casting in their face, Dave! Big Man Tings can do whatever he wants! Double kill as he puts down Polar Bear Mike, and he's gonna keep on jumping in. PandaCap better stay on the retreat. Big Man Tings on the hunt.
Big Man Tings has full HP at the back end. He's got a soul gem, yeah, sure. And a little lifesteal in the boots, but this Tiamat had to burn the relics, has been untouched. It's a 2-for-2 trade, but you gotta look at the Camelot Kings. Getting the FG is the big difference maker here in this fight. There'll be a tier 1 tower that goes down as well. What a fight from the Camelot Kings. It looks for a moment there, Mifflin, like the Jade Dragons had won it all, but that kite backwards and then re-engage back in is really what made a big difference.
I know that the damage mitigation that Tiamat has makes her really a not fun target to hit. You don't want to step up to her. She's always tankier than you expect. But legitimately, throughout that team fight, Big Man Tings was never more than 5 inches away from his nearest opposition, but somehow, for some reason, the Jade Dragons were unwilling to hit him. He was legitimately free casting in their face the entire team fight. Of course he's going to get a ton of damage. Of course he's going to find a double kill if you allow him that much freedom. And Big Man Tings is not the type of player that you can do that against. He's not the type of player to miss out on those opportunities. He's obviously going to be able to make the hero play for his squad. Now the Camelot Kings, 29 minutes into the game, have a 7,000 gold lead up against the Jade Dragons with 3 tier 2 towers left standing. That's 3 tier 2 gold caches left standing to be taken.
Right. On the left-hand side, a stiff breeze from going over, so one minion wave finds its way on the left side of the map here, and the Jade Dragons have an exposed left Phoenix. Hell, Genetics could walk up and auto-attack it a couple of times, should he so choose. My man, Big Man Tings, is putting on a clinic here, 6-0-2, and we'd wondered, you know, it's one of those topics of conversation where early on Tiamat was pretty consistently banned, and Genetics will find. Okay, it was 3 auto attacks. Okay, 4 auto attacks. I got it a little bit wrong there, but Genetics got it down nonetheless. For a while there, remember at the beginning of Season 8, Tiamat was consistently banned, finally made it through, didn't win a whole lot, but now has gone back into the ban column. It's because of plays like this. Players like this. Big Man Tings at 6-0-2 has taken this game over for the Camelot Kings. FineOK at 4-1-10 is going to be a big driving factor in finding that backline and giving this Dragons a hope at a defense.
And the defense is good on the side of the Dragons, at least insofar as their draft. Hurrywind is going to have a very easy time outputting poke on this Merlin and making sure the minion wave doesn't work its way in. The no-play zone ultimate from PBM, able to just dissuade the Camelot Kings from stepping forward, as well as the CC core. Even FineOK, once the game simplifies in a defensive state like this, should be able to find a high-value ultimate. But already, PandaCat using his, raining down the Suns a little bit too early. Camelot Kings immediately just walk on out, takes maybe 1 tick of damage.
Captain Twig is alone here in the mid lane. He'll get drop kicked back against the wall, immediately turns around with the Windfire wheels. And look at the shielding that is assisting Captain Twig and keeping him in the rest of this fight. Another shield falls on him. That's thanks to the starter item upgrade there from Variety. FineOK has to leave, no frontline remaining, except for PBM, who has to leave as well. The mid lane Phoenix looking healthy, left side does as well, but Variety, he de-transforms in the middle of the Jade Dragons here. A great wall from Genetics keeps him in the fight a little bit longer.
It does. I'm pretty sure that wall saves Variety's life. PBM was on the chase and looking for the stun, and the chase continues. Jade Dragons keep moving forward, but not much needed to be done. Camelot Kings immediately sent back to base. Fire Giant wears off. No way they can keep that Phoenix Siege going. Instead, it's about this next Fire Giant buff. 10,000 gold down. Jade Dragons have to make a hard decision. Do they want to step up to the neutral objective or reprise their performance on the Phoenix?
Look, that's about as best as you can hope for there, isn't it, if you're the Jade Dragons, where you repel a couple attempts at an attack. And then you have to look at, where do we stand in the game? Because you look up at the scoreboard, you've got a massive gold lead, 12,000 or so for the Camelot Kings after all those towers go down. 13,000 in the XP department. That doesn't mean as much here. Polar Bear Mike, the last player in this game to not reach level 20, but he's already been able to afford his starter item upgrade. Everyone outside of a couple tier 2 items on a full build, so it's really those elixirs, the power pots, that'll maybe make a big difference in that gold department. Variety gets stunned here. He's got to be careful. Panda Cat is effectively a chainsaw at this point in this game. If Variety gets caught out at all, then Panda Cat likely makes quick work of that Cthulhu health bar.
Now the Jade Dragons, not unlike my dog, digging in their heels and trying to defend the home front. Fire Giant is being looked at by the Camelot Kings, but has not been started up. Genetics now pulling it. Enhanced Fire Giant, 33 minutes in, should be able to strip away the defense, the backdoor protections of these Phoenixes. Jade Dragons do not want to have to contend with that.
Jade Dragons need to defend this FG, not unlike your dog, defending the homestead there for you, Mifflin. And they will show some face here, but look how close Big Man Tings is standing. One big volley of damage is enough to proc that soul gem. We saw a little bit of this yesterday. One team on the front foot, the other team on the back foot. You're just trying to beckon in the Jade Dragons here to try to find an engage. Final K on the right, PBM on the left, half HP now on the Fafnir. Everyone in this game has got their ultimates ready to go. A couple actives down on either side, but Camelot King's slightly healthier in that department. If Hurrywin gets caught out, he's got no beads. It's half HP as the Fire Giant has continued to be worked on. Polar Bear Mike pops the Frenzy here, and the Camelot Kings trying to disengage and allow that active time to wear off. And it looks like they've done so, but Sanford Soccer finds the leap in. PBM immediately follows up, but the Jade Dragons will not follow up in force.
The Kings just won't take a fight unless it's a fight they're starting. Every single time the Jade Dragons start to engage, the Kings just hold down their S keys, drags them out. It's that lack of CC from their side.
They found Tings on the right-hand side, a perfect target, and it's the first death of the game for Big Man Tings. Genetics immediately trades one back. Netrioid, he's got to leave the rest of this fight. Panda Cat starting to work some damage in. Captain Twig alone, but he's found the Windfire wheels. Will Hurrywin go down? He sure will, and it's Captain Twig who puts him in the dirt. PBM leaps away as Variety in the descent into madness, trying to chase down Panda Cat. Genetics got a couple in this fight. The Camelot Kings making a 3-for-1.
Man, Variety so patient with that ultimate, just waiting until the Jade Dragons use all their tools. And once that mobility is down, you better believe he's going to be descending into madness, acting as that CC core for his squad. No one able to walk away from him. Camelot Kings walk away from the fight with Fire Giant on 4. Big Man Ting's going to rejoin the ranks of his teammates in about 15 seconds. Better think that he's going to step up to these Phoenixes as well. 30 seconds left on Hurrywind, 30 on Panda Cat. That's so much time for the Kings to work with.
And you know it feels tough there, looking at the fight recap that Jade Dragons did. 3,000 or 4,000 more damage in that last fight than the Camelot Kings did, but it's a 3-for-1 trade in favor of the Camelot Kings. Big Man Tings was the only one who ends up going down, which, Mifflin, you figure is the best target, right? I mean, you want to jump on this Tiamat, you've got to get it out of the fight. But despite all that, the rest of the Kings were able to turn things around there, and now fully reinforced with FG on 4 out of 5. And this is an important one. 3 Phoenixes left standing, but the Jade Dragons may be feeling somewhat confident here, Mifflin. They were able to push back a couple of attempts at the Phoenixes just a few minutes ago that the Kings had put on.
Look, if you're a Camelot Kings fan, you need Netrioid to step up now. Enhanced Fire Giant, 33 minutes in. Netrioid has been struggling to find his damage output onto enemy gods, but now all he has to do is make contact with these structures. 4, 5, 6 auto attacks should be all it takes to shut down one of these Phoenixes. And with the Ymir on the team inside of Genetics, should be pretty easy, right? Drop a wall, separate the fight, and just open up the door to siege out the base. Keep your eyes on Netrioid. It's up to him.
Looks like Genetics picked up Emperor's Armor at some point here in this game. Maybe makes these sieges a little bit easier for the rest of your team, and the Camelot Kings will group up and try to use that Emperor's Armor to its full effect around this left side Phoenix, except for Captain Twig, who's over there on the right. There are some Tiamat minions on the right-hand side that allow that wave to push in. Over in the mid lane, both junglers meet eye to eye as we're so often to seeing, but Sanford Soccer is not happy with that. Sanford Soccer wants the 1v1. Captain Twig does not. Windfire wheels are there. Sanford Soccer doesn't have his ultimate, neither does Panda Cat. So immediately an inherent ultimate advantage for the Camelot Kings.
Now the Camelot Kings just biding their time, waiting for this 1v1 and win. Twig steps back up, burns away the beads.
A 1v1 we thought, but FineOK evens the odds now for the Jade Dragons. He jumps in, but he will not jump out as the wall from Genetics keeps FineOK right where he's at. Variety goes big here. Sanford Soccer back to base. Netrioid sensing this right side Phoenix is low. Remember the Tiamat minions were working their way down the right-hand side in this Phoenix. Not long for this world. Just a last bit of damage will make its way in.
Okay.
Just a minute. Genetics won't have to auto-attack it this time as Netrioid has supplied the damage.
Man, for a second there, it looked like Netrioid was just going to walk away from it at like 5 HP.
Nervous.
Kind of freaked me out for a second there, but does eventually snap back up and finish off that right-hand side. And now Captain Twig, after skirmishing with Sanford Soccer for so long, is about It's going to be a little while till he gets that mana back from Fire Giant. Well, Sam has a fountain nearby. He doesn't have to worry about that.
That's right. My man, Big Man Tings, has got 33,000 damage here. 37 minutes into this game, 7,000 higher than anyone else. FineOK has been a man mountain, as Hindu Man would say, there on the front line, and he's been doing it consistently, and that's where the Jade Dragons will have to look here. But Sanford Soccer, he might have won another 1v1 against Captain Twig. Captain Twig can't fight, no matter what. Even if he doesn't die here, he cannot participate in the rest of this fight, but it looks like he will not go down as he will escape the rest, and the Camelot Kings pushed back from the mid lane once more.
Man, Twig has been dancing with death up against Sanford Soccer for the last minute or so, just trying to create a little bit of space for his team. No mana this time, but shouldn't affect him too much as Oni Fury goes down here. And now Fire Giant wears off yet again, and all the Camelot Kings get is, well, the least impactful Phoenix, the one closest to Fire Giant, the one that's easiest for the Jade Dragons to defend against if they want to wait it out and step up to this Fire Giant itself. Last time around they were willing to, but they weren't nearly as far behind as they are now. But 38, 39 minutes in the game, gold starts to mean less and less. Now it's about who's selling boots, who's got all their relics fully upgraded, who's got the elixirs of power. And with 18,000 gold, or 18, don't do math on cast day, with a ton of gold in the lead, Camelot Kings should be able to have at least a slight edge coming into this team fight.
It's that extra digit now that we've crossed over into 100,000 gold territory that really throws you off, right? And because I was immediately going to try to correct you. 19,000. Look, Myth, you are damn close on that one, so I'll give you props. 19,000 gold. The difference here. And yet again, I'll echo an earlier sentiment. The Jade Dragons have to feel confident here underneath their Phoenixes, because that's now back-to-back sieges where the Jade Dragons have looked like the stronger team. The right side Phoenix does go down. You have to remember the Tiamat minions did a lot of damage over there on the right. And then eventually Netrioid and Genetics finished it off. We haven't seen really a successful full-on push from the Camelot Kings underneath one of these Phoenixes just yet. The Fire Giant will surely help, and that's why the Camelot Kings have started it up here, and they are doing it, and they are doing it quickly. Sub half HP now on the objective. FineOK looking to engage with his ultimate here as Variety has worked his way back into that one. Captain Twig has got one in the Windfire wheels, and down they crash to earth, but no kill on the back end. All the sash is no good, and Polar Bear Mike is found. Captain Twig, Sanford Soccer looking for more.
That is 100% off the back of phenomenal ult placement from FineOK. Not often is a zoning ult just not a meme. Instead, he drops it to make sure that the Camelot Kings have no way to retreat out of that fight. Cuts it off entirely, and Captain Twig, with only one option, takes someone up to the air. Normally, when Naja's got someone in the Windfire wheels, you're feeling pretty good about it, but the rest of his team was not in range to defend him, and instead, it's Twig who dies on landing.
Camelot Kings are down one man, and they still want to do this FG. They might have to back away, just sensing, poking, prodding, seeing if the Jade Dragons were still close by, and the Jade Dragons were. Sanford Soccer is down low here. Variety is as well. Looks like everyone will survive from this small bit of fighting. Big Man Tings eats a little rotation there from Hurrywind. Down to half health now, and the Jade Dragons will continue this tug of war. That's a good eye by Doug. The Tiamat minions have made their way down the left-hand side of the map. Now there's 2 lanes worth of fire minions being worked at, and that's enough to give the Jade Dragon some pause.
Man, that is so messed up that Big Man Tings is just allowed to have more minions in a lane by merit of being Tiamat. That is the strength of this god, the ability to split up the map without even being there right now. Fire minions working their way down the left-hand side and into the base. Someone's going to have to back up and stop it, Dave. Someone has to, and that means that Fire Giant's going to be that much easier for the Kings to take.
Right now, it looks like Panda Cat is going to be the one to have to go back. He has enough DPS to work through these waves quickly, but we've already seen how much damage the Camelot Kings do to this FG when they get one concerted effort on it. You could probably get this done with just a couple members of your team tanking up the damage that the Fire Giant is putting out. Hell, it's just Genetics and Netrioid right now. And they're a small breeze away from getting it down to half HP. The Fire Giant going down quickly. As Panda Cat has cleared out the left-hand side, he rejoins the back of this fight. Sam for Soccer looking for Captain Twig, potentially, maybe Netrioid. Sam for Soccer is going to be hard to duel, maybe one of the more difficult duels to have at this point here in this game. We have reached the 42-minute mark as the FG stands tall. Sam for Soccer could make the big play here if he finds Big Man Tings on the backside. He has found Big Man Tings, but Big Man Tings uses the beat. Sam for Soccer has to leave, though. The Camelot Kings have found enough peel to get Sam for Soccer dead. Variety finds the opening kill here as the Camelot Kings will work their way into the Jade Dragons.
Sam for Soccer was only in range to take damage from enemy gods for, what, a second? And the Camelot Kings, with the best reaction time this side of the Mississippi, were able to shut him down so quickly. Now the Jade Dragons are on the back foot, missing one member for the next 40 seconds. And all the Camelot Kings have to do is continue the threat. Someone has to stop it!
Wait, they can just stop the back. The minions are just going to get it done. The Jade Dragons.
Oh my God.
They're trying to fight over it. That's game. It's game over. The Camelot Kings, they don't even need to fight. The minions are going to get it done. Are you kidding me? Yeah, they got fire. Great. 43 minutes exactly. The Camelot Kings are able to get the win here over the Jade Dragons. Look, that is almost unfair how that game ends, isn't it? Where the all right, you know what? Whatever.
No, go on, Dave. Talk about how the game.
No, what do you want me to talk about the game? I got Ramsey sleeping on the couch next to me here, all is well. You want to talk about the game? Tiamat and Tiamat minions, Mifflin. How does that sound?
It sounds like something that needs to get banned out in the next match, doesn't it, right? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Tiamat should not be allowed to have that much presence on the map without even having to dedicate her body to a lane, but that's exactly how it pans out. But the Jade Dragons did not make it easy. 43-minute-long slugfest inside of this one. Look, no notes. Keep doing it. Both teams playing at a very high level.
Ramsey looks like what I imagine playing against Tiamat minions feels like. I don't know, man. She doesn't have enough weight to keep the old head up on this one. I'll let her continue snoozing instead of bothering her any longer. Game one comes to a close, and it's the Camelot Kings behind a massive mid lane performance for Big Man Tings who start this one off with the win. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back for game two.
there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
I took as many notes there as I could from Aggro because everything he said is the stuff I'm supposed to say. So you need to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware, smitegame.com/Alienware, use code SMITEAW, all that good stuff. And I can tell you, my computer right here, I built it years and years ago. It felt top of the line. Literally everything in the PCs that the pros are using is like at least 2 generations, if not more, than ahead of what I've been able to pick up. These computers are insanely good. Again, smitegame.com/Alienware and code SMITEAW. You want to make sure that you get in on. And thank you again to Alienware for partnering with us here for SMITE Pro League in Season 8. And Aggro, I mean, you kind of said it better than I could there. I just had to reiterate all the points you had already made. But it feels like things are going to continue on that route, actually. We're going into the desk here for game number 1, where I'll ideally reiterate the good points that you make. And there feels like a little bit of a whoopsies at the end there. Winions are the thing that end game number 1. Tiamat, big man Tings, on high ping, by the way, just looks too unstoppable on this pick.
Yeah, look, here's the deal. We can sit here and debate all day whether or not Tiamat should be able to spawn minions that push down a lane. That doesn't really concern me in this game. What concerns me is that the Jade Dragons didn't seem to care about it at all and never once played around it. I was just baffled at how poorly they pushed their waves and how little respect they gave over to those Tiamat minions. It's like, I don't know. Yes, that ability is strong. Yes, it does a lot of things. But that's like not buying beads against Ares and then going, oh my god, he can pull me with his ultimate. Yeah, she's gonna get Phoenixes. She's gonna end games. If you don't clear out those minions, it's a huge part of this character's strength, and you didn't play around it. And I think the Jade Dragons did a really poor job of that. Sam had a really good flank to start off that final fight. I think that either he pulled the trigger a little bit too early, or the rest of the team just didn't follow up on his initiation. But they had so many fights where I felt like the Dragons could have done so much more. Sam and Fine isolated Big Man Tings on his one death, and they insta-killed him, and Netrioid had already used his ult, and he got the poison spread to him, and he had to dash away, and the Jade Dragons somehow lost that fight. And I have no idea how that ever happens. I don't know. I think Twig must have gone nuts with the ring toss and had a great ultimate onto Hurwind, who didn't use his relics in time. The front line for the Kings were unbelievable. That Hero's Axe pickup for variety looks preposterous on Cthulhu whenever it's giving max HP shields and you're in the middle of a Cthulhu ult. But at the end of the day, I think the Dragons really had a lot of opportunities to come back and win this game or play around this Tiamat a little bit better, and then they didn't end up doing it. And you got to give credit to the Kings for forcing them into bad spot after bad spot after bad spot, because the Kings played so well in this one.
Well, I'll give the Dragons credit. The good news for them is that their trend of going to 3 games in a set has been pretty on the rise, at least lately, right? They were 2-0s constantly undefeated up until more recently. And then now, lately, it's been a bunch of 3 games for them, so we'll see if they'll be able to bounce back here. You can see, again, consternation coming through. As much as we look at it, you can see a lot of mouths not moving. I'm assuming Mike right now is probably doing a lot of the chit-chatting to figure out what's going on, what kind of game plans they need to change. You can see Sam getting some words in on that one. The thing that I think is going to be interesting as time moves forward, though, is... as you had kind of highlighted, like, the Cthulhu looked really solid for them, even though it didn't necessarily do too much. But the Ymir, the walls from Genetics, countless times saving people on the Kings and killing people on the Dragons. Is that something that you see potentially jumping up into the top 3 bands here?
Potentially, but I think that Mike did a really good job on that Fafnir of initiating these fights, and the Jade Dragons had a lot of mobility over those walls. So as good as the walls were, and they were fantastic, I don't think that looked particularly unbeatable to me. I'm looking at, if you're not willing to play around Tiamat better than that, you have to ban it if you're the Jade Dragons. I actually don't think Tiamat's in a spot where she's unbeatable right now. You just have to play around it pretty well, and clearly that is not potential for the Jade Dragons here in this set. So they make the right call. They ban away that Tiamat. I'm surprised they let Twig get the Najas deep in that draft as they did. I'd be surprised if they didn't make an adjustment centered around that in particular here in these picks and bans.
Last time Umoja, Fenrir both banned out here. Looks like both of those are going to be able to make it through. Same 3 bans from the Kings. The Dragons are the ones adapting to this. And I think actually kind of harking to the point you had made where Tiamat is beatable. I mean, look, the first like 3 weeks of play that she was allowed to play in these games, she lost like everything she was in. She was not, or at least they were not this really big dominant force in the league. I think this is something that big man Tings and specifically the Kings played really well around. That Ymir does get banned out, but once again it's a Chiron first pick for the Kings, answered by Gilgamesh Fafnir. Similar, and in fact the same, just slightly swapped order there for the Dragons. The top 3 picks have not changed.
Yeah, I like this Gilgamesh Fafnir combination. I thought the front line for the Dragons did do a lot of good work in that game. I thought Final K was incredibly impactful on this Gilgamesh. Leaving open the Umoja is the question mark, though, right? I mean, you have that option between Fafnir and Umoja, and Mike goes to the Fafnir instead. If they want to go more auto-attack centric, I wouldn't be surprised if they went Soul with this 3rd pick that was banned in the 2nd phase by the Kings. And if you get a Fafnir Coerce with a Gilgamesh who loves to get extra attack speed because of the 1 stim, with your typical Hunter who loves to get that attack speed stim, and then a Soul that can really shred through some of this front line and the objectives, I think that would combine pretty well for the Dragons.
Well, they liked it so much. Last time around, they didn't pick Cthulhu till their bottom 2 as Cthulhu Naja that routed out the Kings draft in game 1. Now, enough that they top 3 it alongside that Umoja. And I guess this is something to be said. I mean, you had mentioned not only the build that Cthulhu had, giving off the shields, especially when he's in his ult, and how big they were and helpful they were for the Kings. But alongside something like a Umoja, like, this is a formidable front line for the Kings. It's going to be very difficult to deal with and to take down.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you've got plenty of sustain. You've got good mobility between these 2 frontliners. And then, of course, the ability to stand and fight now with the Cthulhu Ultimate and that Umoja healing and shielding. That Hero's Axe, again, looks really, really crazy when it has the right opportunities. And wow, a Danza Burrow pick here for the Dragons really surprises me. I mean, this is not the type of pick that I would think I would want up against Cthulhu. It's a character that doesn't have a ton of mobility. His ultimate is an initiation tool. I mean, it is great to get away from Cthulhu. There's no way he can burst you before you end up getting into that rocket and being able to get out and disengage on a fight. But the CC chain is going to be hard to land on Cthulhu, I think. I think this Danza Fafnir lane has to get ahead. It has to be aggressive on top of this Chiron, because otherwise I think this Danza could really struggle come late game.
I mean, it's one of those picks that this is the third time, I believe, that we've seen him this year. He's lost every game up to this point. He has not necessarily been the most successful pick that has come through, even though he's been a very surprising, and at least early on this year when he was released, everyone loved him, and I think he's still very fun to play and watch. It's just a question of whether or not he can make that jump to the SBL. That's always the big gap, right, for a lot of these gods, is making that jump into being good. Gilgamesh, Tiamat having done so already this year. Danzaburo trying to find his way through. It'll be fun to watch as the bans come through. Fenrir, typically, or at least what was a top ban for the Dragons last time, banned alongside that Naja. You had noted how they let that go through so late for Twig. Now they're just going to try to control that jungle pick, and it's the same Soul Scylla bans coming down from the Kings. I mean, Merlin looked okay early on for Whirlwind, kind of started to fall off towards the end, but what mage do you pair with Danzaburo? Is there a way to make that backline combo really solid?
Yeah, you want something that can follow up on his CC pretty effectively, and I think the two best mages available, Merlin and Raijin, both do that really well. If he's going to taunt them in with that second ability, using your Merlin combo on top of it to continue that CC chain feels really potent, or guaranteeing a Raiju bounce and putting out pretty good damage with that Percussive Storm also feels pretty good. So I'd be surprised if we saw go anywhere besides Raijin or Merlin in this position. He could wait. It's a matter of if they want to give Sam that counter pick this time around. Normally Sam has been waiting a little bit in these drafts, or actually going earlier, in these drafts. The fact that they're letting him find his counter pick. Remember that despite how well Twig played those team fights, Sam was winning every 1v1, just unable to finish every single kill off. He was consistently forcing Twig back in those 1v1 engagements. It wouldn't surprise me if the Dragons want to let Sam get a counter pick so that he can continue to do that in Game 2.
Also worth noting, at least at this point, if we're in a Season 7 draft, I think we're talking only about Nemesis when it comes to the jungle, at least for the Dragons, right? Good against Cthulhu, should theoretically be good against Yamoja. Maybe not against whatever else they have, but they do lock in that Raijin you had highlighted and opt to go for their jungle at the very end. Erlong Shin, another great pick that has been very kind to Twig, locked in over here. I see setup on setup on setup that's coming through, so ideally they get a nice heavy hitter for their last one as well. And while they figure out their last pick, I do want to jump to that other side and talk about that Raijin a little bit more, because like he was banned and picked damn near every single game up until today. I mean, he was constantly coming through and finally going to be locked in. You had mentioned that you would already like to see that, so it's nice to see him locked in here. Erlong Shin Merlin coming through on the other side for the Kings. Raijin Merlin is a matchup we got to see pretty much all of the beginning of last year. It feels very, very at home for us.
Oh, and it's Pele for Sam instead. There's one of those characters that I think really got unlocked whenever Upgraded Shell got nerfed. Instead of taking those block stacks now, where it used to just eat your ultimate cone strikes, now you just deal 50% damage, which is a huge buff to the god of Pele. I think that it has a pretty decent matchup against Erlong Shen. I can't imagine Erlong is winning that 1v1. Pele's so good at outputting a ton of damage really, really quickly. It's just a matter of that long-range pin. If he finds her in the jungle with a little bit of extra sustain and backup behind him, can give that Pele some problems.
For those keeping track at home, Pele's first game of the year. Let's see if it can be a win here in game number 2. The Dragons need it.
Plenty of new picks for Mifflin and I to sink our teeth into here for game number 2 between the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. This one, the Titan will fall with good old-fashioned abilities and auto attacks by the end of it, no matter what. Doug, of course, with us for game number 2 here as well. And Mifflin, I want to pick up right where the desk left off. This Pele pick, one that we know Sam for Soccer can play at near its highest level, if not at its highest level. And Agro's summation there, I think, pretty correct. Or summation, I think is the correct word. And the changes to Shell really brought this god to a stage of potential high play here at the SPL.
I mean, legitimately, that's all there is to say about it. Shell block stacks made Pele almost impossible to play because she has to use auto attacks to get the full value out of her ultimate. Those block stacks made it nigh impossible to find it. But now, with Shell having changed to take 50% damage from auto attacks as long as you have the health shield, it is going to be pretty easy for a Pele to deal with it. That additional ability damage coming from the volcanic eruption, not going to be affected by it either, just the auto attacks. So I think Sanford Soccer chooses the right time to lock in this God. Interestingly enough, I had thought we might see a Bumba's Hammer pick up, considering how auto attack centric Pele is, but instead it is the Eye of the Jungle, likely going to get upgraded into Protector of the Jungle for that percentage defense.
I think interesting to look at Panda Cat's pick here, the Don Zaburo. I've seen a couple of times so far here in Season 8, not often, but why talk about him when Sanford Soccer has found first blood in the mid lane? It's a double pin, which looks nice from Captain Twig, but means effectively nothing. Easy as you like there. And when you know how susceptible this Merlin can be early on in the game, if when it makes sense, why Sanford Soccer put some pressure there early.
Yeah, he uses the blink to find that gank, but you gotta think that BMT is privy to it. I mean, that's normally when junglers start to rotate into mid. Just unfortunate timing gets caught out. And now, first blood going the way of the Jade Dragons. That's exactly the winning formula for the Dragons. Back when they were Ghost, they were kind of hailed as this early game team, this team that really only gets pressure throughout finding kills. And, well, I mean, that was a winning formula for them. I don't see why it would change in Season 8. Sanford Soccer get them off to a great start.
Wow, that wasn't exactly hidden either. That was just a thunder crash in from Hurrywind to get the silence, and then no chance, and the body blocks from Sanford Soccer kept Big Man Tings right where he was. So well played there in the mid lane, the 1-2 punch between Hurrywind and Sanford Soccer. It was quiet for a little while over here in the solo lane. Saw a lot of pressure as the game went on. Variety on this Cthulhu, a massive reason. Hold on, as PBM has dropped his active here. Genetics trades in kind with a sprint of his own, but Genetics is on the wrong side of the map here. He's just working away, and at this point, it's whoever from the Jade Dragons is able to pick up this kill. I see no assist coming. There's no world right where he makes it beneath the Phoenix and grabs the last shot there, and it's going to be the second kill of the game for Sanford Soccer.
That was a strange play from Genetics. He picks up the Heavenly Sprint to deal with the Cursed Ankh, the slows from Fafnir, but the second the Horrific came out, I mean, Netroid knew what he wanted to do, dashed away, got out of there immediately, but Genetics kind of holds his S key for a couple of seconds, finally Heavenlies, and walks into the enemy side of the jungle. Had they been on the same page, I think he just gets out of there for free.
And now it's where can Sanford Soccer continue to put this pressure, still even with Captain Twig as far as levels go. But you got a little extra gold there to work with, so compounding that lead is going to be ever so important now for the Jade Dragons. Keep that pedal pressed on down. Big Man Ting's 20 seconds away from his beads, and half HP as well. Will have the flicker, so a chance to survive under a little bit of pressure. But Captain Twig now taunting in Sanford Soccer and Hurrywind with the Taiko drums providing a lot of damage. Look at what Sanford Soccer's doing, melting through the health bars. Hurrywind has got his first kill of the game, but it's a double for the Raijin and a change for only one now for the Camelot Kings. PBM doing his best to body block as Netroid rotates over. He'll use the ultimate, and Chaos reigns supreme in the mid lane. It's a 2 for 2.
Man, that is an absolutely, first off, nutty rotation from Netroid. ADC in the mid lane at 3 minutes. Usually these guys don't leave until level 20, but 2. Sanford Soccer just did, what, 80% of everybody's HP bar with that ultimate? That's why the shell change is what really got her back in the meta. I mean, my man was absolutely swinging for the fences, dealing damage to every single target inside the jungle. Someone is going to have to CC him out next time he's got that ability up.
Volcanic Lightning, as Doug highlights there. Big piece of this utility and damage for Sanford Soccer. Now 2-1-2. 4.5 minutes into this game. It's going to be difficult for Captain Twig to keep up with that. Captain Twig's got a kill of his own here. Important to look at, and kept even and even a little bit ahead as far as levels go. So a good look for the Camelot Kings jungler, despite difficult to keep up with the pace that Sanford Soccer has put out. And now the Raijin pickup starts to look a little bit more scary here, but why would I get a chance to talk about that when Sanford Soccer is on the map and Hurrywind is in there, Thunder crashing forward as well, Netroid slowed, and Raiju certainly doing some work here, but everyone from the Jade Dragons except for Fino collapses on in, and another couple kills fall for them.
Man, the Jade Dragons woke up here in game 2, and Genetics just looking at him. Yeah, you're dead, bud. Shouldn't have been staring down the eyes of the dragon. They chomp down and pick up another one. 7 kills, 5 minutes, 9 kills in the game, and Fino K does not want to be left out. Looking at Variety on the other side, but a tier 2 tower at the 5-minute mark might be enough to dissuade from Fino from walking forward.
Wow, and Variety is getting bullied out by Fino K over here on the right-hand side of the map. This is one that is getting out of control early. Remember, it was a 1.5, 2,000 gold lead we were looking at for the Camelot Kings a little bit further into the game than this, another 10 minutes maybe or so in game number 1, and the Jade Dragons have rocketed out to an early 2,500 gold lead, 2,000 experience lead here. And this is where this team maybe feels most comfortable. They're certainly not only an early game team, but they are an early game team. They're very good at it, is I guess what I'm trying to say here, especially if Captain Twig sticks around this Greater Scorpion. PBM will continue his journey over to the right-hand side of the map, but Sanford Soccer at 3-1-4, a force to be reckoned with.
Looks like FineOK got a short sword from his passive there. Don't imagine he finishes that one up in a crit. No way FineOK is that crit alpha here in game 2, but that is interesting that it's in that slot. Makes me think that he did build into it, actually. Curious to see it. But going forward, yeah, Genetics is still level 4, by the way. 6.5 minutes in this game. No ultimate available to the Emoja. Finally ticking over to level 5 by soaking up some of Netroid's farm. And, well, Netroid's already a level down. I'm sure that he doesn't want to be splitting his farm. As Sanford Soccer, Panda, and Hurrywin keep their eyes on the objectives. The Jade Dragons have had their fill so far, still keeping a kill up every single minute, but also keeping the objective on their minds.
I imagine this is the type of game where it's difficult for Captain Twig to know exactly where to go, where he feels like if Sanford Soccer shows up at any point in the jungle, it's going to be a duel that he does not want to take. The 9 Turns Blessing have delayed out a couple fights, but when this continually happens, when you show your face anywhere and immediately the Jade Dragons show up with everyone but one of the side laners, I don't know what you're supposed to do. It's a beautiful taunt here from Captain Twig, but you're going to lose 2 in the meantime. Jade Dragons notch a couple more, and Niflin, it's been a copy and paste play, but on the left side of the map or the right side of the map. Either FineOK is there to help, or Panda Cat has been there to help, and then the 3v3 is there on either side.
It's such a risky strategy that the Jade Dragons have employed here. They have essentially foregone the laning phase. They said, you know what? Don't need it. Don't care. Who needs a tower? I don't need to farm minions. The enemy gods are my minions. 9 kills in 8 minutes. Had the Camelot Kings just survived the first 4-man rotation, had they survived the second one, the Jade Dragons would passively fall behind because they're always so grouped up. But these guys are playing out of their minds right now, and every single time they've engaged, they've walked out with at least 1 or 2 kills.
And it seems like every buff on this map cannot be walked at with any level of confidence right now if you're the Camelot Kings, because it was a blue buff that time. Red and purple buff will be close to respawning here on this side of the map in just a short amount of time. Gold Fury seems almost out of the question for the Camelot Kings unless you see the Jade Dragons entirely over on the right. But red buff back towards respawning. You can see PBM lurking over there on that side of the map. Sanford Soccer followed up by Hurrywind as well, and it's, I think, the right call here by the Camelot Kings. Let's not show too much face here. The red buff is probably just worth sacrificing at this point.
I'm flabbergasted, Dave, that they didn't just like jump onto Genetics right there with the pace that they've been maintaining. It blows my mind. Yeah, they've locked eyes with every enemy so far and engaged them like a Pokemon trainer. Wild. How do they? What's the thought process, Dave? How do they know when they want to engage and when they don't? It just seems like at this point it's just arbitrary. Sometimes we feel like it, sometimes we don't. Now, Jade Dragons trying to establish a little bit of dominance on the left-hand side of the map. 4-man grouping already. Better believe they got their mind on the Gold Fury. If Netroid steps up, well, he's going to have an entire team on him, and if he falls, they're going to lose out on the objective. They can if they're there in numbers.
Should the Kings
don't look for it. No, 4,000 gold, 9 minutes. They shouldn't.
There you go.
They can, though.
You got me on some linguistics there. They can. They sure can. They can press that W key if they want to. They might not want to, though. This is the big pivot here. Genetics finds Sanford Soccer, but that's not the surprise he was hoping to see around the corner. The Riptide buys some time, but the River's Rebuke will not provide enough. Netroid dashes away, and that's just a good old-fashioned 2v2, but it gets worse. Maybe a kill on the Sanford Soccer as Captain Twig has found one and chops him down for 2. Did not see that one coming. The Camelot Kings show some signs of life.
Great job fighting back in from the Kings. They had the numbers advantage on the left-hand side, sacrificing their mid laner there. BMT got dove out by Hurry and PBM, but getting 2 kills in trade, always going to feel good when you're this far down. The gold deficit is massive at this point, so anything that the Camelot Kings are able to claw back is going to feel great.
It sure is, and now it's Captain Twig. That's a threat to be looked at by the Jade Dragons. He's got 3 kills, stone-cutting sword, chopping away. Provide some extra damage as the fight goes on, if the fight is still able to go on. So you look now, some of these power spikes maybe starting to get hit, and the Camelot Kings agreeing. They're going to start the Pyromancer here. It's an envelopment, though, from the Jade Dragons. 2 around the backside. 2 close by over in the soul lane. Polar Bear Mike will transform. He's not concerned about the Pyro. He's concerned about the fight afterward. Horrific Emblem gets used. That keeps Captain Twig somewhat where he is. And it might be the Erlong Shen sacrificed here. Could go from 3-3 to 3-4, and Hurrywin finds the last bit of damage. Over on the right, Genetics gets gobbled up by FineOK, and the Jade Dragons right back to form.
Variety now looking to get caught out here. Hurrywin jumps in forward. Descent into Madness is just used momentarily to dissuade the dive from continuing. Gotta think that the Jade Dragons are primed here to go ahead and strip away the tier 1 tower on right. Even if Sanford Soccer so chooses, could look towards the mid-tier 1, but instead has his eyes on the Oracles. With Pyromancer down, only one neutral objective realistically could fall in the near future, and that is the Gold Fury. Jade Dragons setting up for it. Still 4,000 gold in the lead.
Yeah, my God. 5-2-6 for Sanford Soccer. 4-1-6 for Hurrywin on this Raijin. He's got an early Divine Ruin here. So if there is any healing to come through, and there is, between the Emoja, Captain Twig on the back end of his ultimate, that's going to get mitigated by Hurrywin here as well. We've seen big value out of this Raijin, haven't we? Not only in this game, but when we have seen Raijin. Raijin has pulled a lot of early bans, so I admittedly was somewhat surprised he fell that far down in the draft, and the Jade Dragons clearly happy that was the case. PBM won't hit with the hammer here, just buying some space though, because the rest of the team back on the Gold Fury.
And they're burning it so quickly. It's just Genetics in range right now for the steal, but yeah, no shot. That's how it works out.
Whoa!
Might be able to find the kill to Sam though, and he does. Netroid picks him up.
Well, that's a big pickup as well for the Camelot Kings. They lose the Gold Fury, but notch another kill onto Sanford Soccer. Now the highest threat on the Jade Dragons is off the map, but you could say the same maybe about the Camelot Kings as FineOK dueling out with Captain Twig. The heal comes through, and it is an Ankh. Good eye there, Mifflin. FineOK continuing the chase. You have to imagine just a bit of time into the wall goes Captain Twig. That broke me, just the way that worked. Panda Cat snags one on a Genetics here. The fighting has continued in the mid lane.
Now it's Genetics who falls. Twig and Big Man Teams might be
God.
following in the near future. FineOK drop kicking his way across the map,
Oh, he's
but
out.
finds himself in the madness, descending. Variety looking to finish him up, and he does.
What is happening here? FineOK trades out. Now Panda Cat grabs another kill. It's a red buff and flicker away from Big Man Tings. Almost too much to keep up with there. The gold lead has expanded just slightly now, 5,000. But remember, there was a Gold Fury just a few moments ago. And in chaos like that, Mifflin, it's hard to kind of feel like maybe who comes out ahead, because given how far behind the Camelot Kings are, the fact that they're evenly trading out some of these fights has got to feel somewhat okay.
Yeah, it feels okay, man. Get that spam rolling in the chat as Camelot Kings are trying to get their wheels rolling under them. Jade Dragons still are coming out ahead on these engagements if we are just to go by the graphs here. And Dave, we're talking 16 kills, 22 total in a match in 14 minutes. We're on pace for some historic SMITE here. This could be one of the highest kill games of SPL history going forward. It's wild. It's wild, and something's gotta give, right? Eventually, the time and the clock is gonna click onward just enough that Fire Giant's gonna fall off of one of these engagements, and that's gonna open up the map so much.
You do have to think Panda Cat's gone for an early Aussie here. Netroid has done the same, so Netroid may be the closest to his counterpart on this map, as Captain Twig has fallen a couple levels behind. I was praising him earlier on in this game. Had the Erlong Shen had been able to keep pace, but it was only a matter of time, right? At a 5-3-6, Sanford Soccer was going to pull a little bit too far ahead. It's a Rivers Rebuke, but is it enough? No, it's not. Killing spree for Panda Cat and Netroid trying to even up the score a little bit, but instead he might tilt it further over towards the Jade Dragons. Hurrywin on a killing spree. Twig likely makes 3, and a Thunder Crash will see to it. That he buys a little bit of time, but it's still a 2 for none so far, unless Variety falls on the back end.
And he just might, because Sanford Soccer shows up. Yeah, Descend into Madness, so you can have that on cooldown. Doesn't even actually get the cooldown off. My man tried his best and falls down. If you're asking about the Kings, well, probably to game 3 at this pace, right?
No.
But if you're talking about the Dragons, Fire Giant, I guess.
No, I'm not saying in this game. I'm saying in game 1, where was this? It's such a hard team to figure out sometimes, because they have the ability to do this. They're up 19-6 at 15.5 minutes. And then aggro, I think rightfully so, points out that they couldn't play around the team that bit. It is so weird sometimes, this Jade Dragons team, because they play like the best team in the league in moments like this. And if they can get those feet back under them, find that early Season 8 form again, it's going to be a very, very scary team. This one, a far reach, you have to imagine, for the Camelot Kings to make their way back in.
It's going to be tough. Not often is it a 10,000, yeah, I did the math on cast, at 16-minute gold lead. Jade Dragons
because you got 2 9s.
looking pretty good here. Yeah, look, oh, it's closer to 9. I'm feeling pretty bad about it now. But that 13,000 experience tells a different story, man. At this point in the game, experience is the name of the game. 4 levels in solo, 3 in the jungle, 2 in mid, 5 levels out of support. I mean, Jade Dragons, it's their game to lose.
Yeah, you think PBM's feeling good here. He started to build into a little bit of power, maybe a bit earlier than we would expect. Sanford Soccer says this purple buff is not free.
Okay.
He didn't care about the purple buff. He just wants Netrioid here, and goodbye to the Chiron, as we've now reached 20 kills for the Jade Dragons in 16 minutes and 45 seconds. And this is the point in the game where the Jade Dragons have to choose how safely they do or do not want to play this. There will be a Primal Fury here shortly. Could be a good target if you're considering an early game Fire Giant. Okay, I thought Captain Twig was looking for Sanford Soccer there for a second. I'm thinking there's no chance. But Sanford Soccer might be looking for Captain Twig. Let's see if he catches out the back.
Oh, no.
And the pin absorbs the bubble here, and Sanford Soccer is...
He's safe, he's safe.
Playing with his food a little bit. That's right. You get the dash away. All right,
oh,
Mifflin.
He's not safe. He's not safe.
He's not safe. Abort mission. Abort mission.
That's not safe. That's not safe.
I'm not safe. Everyone leave.
Oh, he's safe.
Survive. No way. He is safe. He is safe. He is safe. Captain Twig lives on, but not without a little bit of chaos.
Hey, he might live on, but the same cannot be said of the Primal Fury. 4 rather. Oh no, it is all 5 of them over there on the Jade Dragon side, just working their way in towards the objective. Yeah, this is nuts, man. I mean, how are we supposed to keep pace with this? At 26 kills in 17 minutes, and already the Jade Dragon's pulling further ahead. Now 11,000 gold. Just go to the Fire Giant, guys. Just put an end to him. Stop hitting him. He's dead already.
We got to save our chops for what looks like a very likely Game 3 between these two teams. Pele, all right, look. It's not over till it's over, but we've obviously got some downtime here. The Jade Dragons are going to work towards the FG, and we'll call that fight when it happens. Do you think Pele suddenly becomes a ban for the Camelot Kings in what likely looks like a Game 3?
I mean, it's hard to say. Pele is strong, but how often can you really expect Sanford Soccer to get as immaculate a lead as he got in this game? And could he not just do the exact same thing
every game
on another auto attack god, right? Pele is not so significantly stronger than Erlang, Shen, even Gilgamesh Jungle is going to be able to match some of this pressure. If we want to talk about auto attackers, Ao Kwang's in the conversation as well. I don't think that you could dedicate a ban towards a Pele.
Yeah, fair enough. There's plenty in the god pool there for Sanford Soccer. That makes Pele a bit of a hard sell in the old ban column there. 5 strong with the FG, as the Camelot Kings will have to go back to base and throw together some semblance of a Phoenix defense here. Yeah, I don't know. It's looking tough. You know, River's Rebuke. Here's what I'm calling, Mifflin. A River's Rebuke.
Yep.
Put Sanford Soccer alone with all 5 Camelot Kings.
Okay.
And then Sanford Soccer pentakills him. Just kidding. Variety caught alone here in the Tier 2 tower in mid. But this looks like maybe the softest Tier 2 defense of all time, as the Camelot Kings likely just biding their time for one of these Phoenixes. Minions have made their way on the right-hand side, but not a big enough wave to make any real threat towards that one. Jade Dragon's playing it smart, though. Let's wait for these minions. And then we can work our way in towards the tower. But Fine OK, not content with waiting. He'll wrap around the backside, and we will wait for another minion wave, as Camelot Kings have a bit of wave clear of their own.
It is still early as far as the clock is concerned, so maybe the Jade Dragon's not willing to just straight up tank up this Tier 2 tower, and the Camelot Kings are going to throw up a soft defense. If the fight starts to look good, that's when Variety will likely use the Descent into Madness to try and keep people around, but I'm not sure I want to stand near the Jade Dragons at this point. Camelot Kings may have stepped too far forward. Final K's in.
Yeah, Final K blinks in, finds himself a pretty good ultimate, but the Jade Dragons won't be there to immediately follow up. It's bought space, though, to get the Tier 2 tower down in mid. Big Man Ting sends some damage Hurrywoon's way, but it won't connect as the Raiju's on Captain Twig, but won't get triggered. Then the rest of the Jade Dragons work in. Under the mid lane, Phoenix they go. Netroid uses his ultimate, and Hurrywind is connected with the Taiko drums from range. Half HP on all of the Camelot Kings. It feels like a matter of time before one of these dominoes fall. But the Camelot Kings staying alive. A little bit of sustain from the level 11 Yamoja, keeping them in this fight.
It is, and it is only a little bit of sustain because Yamoja is level 11, 20 minutes into the game on a Phoenix defense, but it is just enough to keep the Camelot Kings tided over, just enough to keep them topped up so that the Jade Dragons will not continue their push. Instead, falling back, seeing if maybe the Camelot Kings steps forward. I don't think they will, and I don't think they should. Three-man core up towards mid. Jade Dragons go ahead and head back onto base. Still a minute and a half left on their Fire Giant, so they're going to have plenty of time to go ahead and back up, spend all the gold they got from these towers, regroup, and try that siege yet again.
Oh man, Sanford Soccer just finished off a Heartseeker. 21 minutes into this game now, Pele full build with a Heartseeker on the end of it, so goodbye health bars. Seemingly no matter who you are, whether you're tanky or not, Sanford Soccer will find his way, and then you'll find your way about 6 feet under as the Camelot Kings 21 minutes in. They'll do their best to farm up a bit here, Mifflin, get themselves somewhat close as far as levels go. Big Man Ting's level 19. He'll be close to being able to upgrade that starter item here shortly. But at 45 seconds left on this Fire Giant, maybe one last chance here for the Jade Dragons, likely. Just going to buy some time before heading back to the FG, and Oni Fury will be here close by. That'll be back maybe just as this Fire Giant is falling off. But this is methodical, right? When a few minutes ago I said there's different ways that the Jade Dragons can play this, this is the safest way of doing it.
It is. It might be considered a little bit overly safe with a 15,000 gold lead. Again, 22 minutes in the game. Super early still as far as the clock is concerned, but I cannot
After game one, I'm not taking any risk.
Yeah, no risk. This is tournament point, essentially, or not tournament point, or set point for the Camelot Kings here, so the Jade Dragon's going to make sure that they don't fumble it in the final quarter. 22 minutes in means that Oni Fury is going to be respawning as well. Should be able to split up the map, create those enhanced minion waves, and make it easier for them to look towards the Fire Giant. I'm not sure that it's overly necessary. They just want to make sure the Kings can't get the objective is what I'm thinking, because there's no way the Order side team steps up and takes a fight in neutral territory around the Fire Giant.
Now, the Camelot Kings didn't show any face around that last FG. Hard to see a world where they do it for this FG, because there's still a gap being closed. Now, here's a silver lining. We always got to make things somewhat interesting, even when all signs are pointing towards the opposite here. 20-6 in the kills department. We kind of back up that statement. Everyone except for PBM has reached level 20. So experience is going to start mattering less, I guess, as the Camelot Kings are going to start closing up that gap just a little bit. Variety and Captain Twig, 3 levels behind their counterparts. Netroid 2. And Genetics has maintained a steady 4-level deficit throughout the part of this game. This is going to be where you see what the Kings' mindset is. They are backing away as the Fire Giant is respawned. I think that's the correct call. You've got 3 Oni waves to work with here. Let's try our hand at a Phoenix defense, but the problem is this time there's no tier 2 towers for the Jade Dragons to work through. They're just going to walk right up to one of these Phoenixes and give it a siege.
Dave, with the pace as it is and how well the Camelot Kings have been farming from behind, if they're able to stop this push from the Jade Dragons, they'll effectively buy them 5-6 more minutes. I think 10 minutes from now, 34-minute mark, this game's essentially dead even already. Some of the members of Camelot Kings approaching their full build, a couple of them rounding out their 5th item. I mean, it's not often that you're on 5 items in level 13, but it's a siege on the right-hand side.
But Genetics can't go back because an Oni minion has chased him down. And now there's just no Yamoja in this fight. Variety is the only frontliner. Hurrywind has stayed alive.
What happened?
This one seems to be sunsetting a bit here, Mifflin, doesn't it? The Jade Dragons, 5 strong, work their way onto the mid lane. Phoenix, 2 are gone. Big Man Tings and Netroid still stand, so it's not done until those 2 have had their say. But it's going to be a 3rd and final Phoenix maybe going down, but the blinks are in. Big Man Tings, goodbye. Camelot Kings, goodbye. Game 2, goodbye. We'll see you up next for Game 3.
Man, well, the Jade Dragons at least made it a little bit quicker this time around. Hey, look, if we got 10 more minutes in there, Dave, I mean it. I think the Camelot Kings could have potentially won a team fight. Maybe not the game, but certainly a team fight in its own right. Jade Dragons, I mean, Dave said it earlier, what was it, 10 minutes ago? If you guys could play like this, why not just do it all the time?
Yeah, right. It's that easy, right? Just beat one of the top 3 teams in the league mercilessly every single time you play them, right? I mean, it's just that easy. No, sometimes the Jade Dragons just hit that stride in the early game and don't show any signs of slowing down. It really got out of hand. Look, there were a couple early trades where we're like, oh, the Camelot Kings were actually able to get a couple kills on the back end of that. Things could get interesting here, but they would not. The Jade Dragons steamroll this one away in just shy of 25 minutes. We have a game 3 right after this.
That's right, team jerseys and more. The more includes shirts, it includes hoodies, it includes hats, all sorts of things that you can get for your favorite teams. Shop.smiteproleague.com. Insight Apparel is our merch sponsor here, and they make some great merch at that. My favorites, I'll be honest, I love a good graphic tee, and I think my favorites have to just be the graphic tees we have, team logos. I would argue it's some of the best Pro League merch that we've gotten to have, and I can say that with certainty. I have like an NRG jersey, I have an Eager jersey, I have a bunch of team jerseys from back in the day when I was a fan, and I think that everything I've seen this year at least jumps up over what I've purchased in the past, and I hope that you will purchase not in the past, in the now, as we move forward with it. And speaking of moving forward, Aggro, game number 3. Look, game 1, nice and close. Winions come through, kind of an anticlimactic ending, if I'm being completely honest and candid about it. And then in game 2, the Dragons loaded in and played Team Deathmatch. The Kings were still trying to play Conquest, but they didn't really get a choice.
No, they didn't. Sam for Soccer and Herwin just decided that why mess around with Phoenix Sieges and Fire Giant fights and things of that nature when you can just absolutely gun down everyone else on the Kings. I mean, take a look at this. Big man Tings just gets committed on right away, level 2 by Hurry. That's what Raijin does really, really well, better than just about every other mage. These two just really roamed around, Mike, of course, alongside them. But they just became this death squad that just walked around and did whatever they wanted to do, and the Kings were not equipped to fight it. And really, by this point almost, you feel like the game was starting to be over because of how well the Jade Dragons pushed their leads.
I mean, it's just the way that they got... you know, we used to talk of them last year a lot about being an early game team, and of course you asked them, what they would very commonly say is the fact that they're not necessarily quote-unquote an early game team as much as it is that they just win early on and they haven't been pushed to those late games, and we're starting to see that, I think, come through in this one. I mean, just well played from top to bottom. The Raijin fit in the way you wanted to. I'm surprised, I think more than anything, that Dan Zaburo looked really good coming down from Panda Cat. What is that, 5-1 and 7 for him. I think everybody just felt more or less at home on that game there for the Dragons. And that makes things a lot more interesting moving forward to game number 3, because one is a 40-minute banger, comes down to Winions after several crazy Fire Giant fights where the Dragons unfortunately aren't able to find a lot of the picks they want. I think they only killed Tings that one time and weren't able to capitalize on it. The second one, there's not much the Kings can do. It's as fast as they can be. They never get a chance to really catch their breath, let alone try to fight back. Now we're going into a weird balance that comes through. And Aggro, I saw you reply to this one, and it's exactly what's right? I mean, nothing's wrong with your camera. It's something wrong with everyone's monitor instead. Yeah,
finally, someone's getting it. Dan, smart man, just understands what you should be doing with your monitors if you want to watch me on the perfect angle. That's all there is to it.
But here's the question. Why did no one do this for Myth's pictures when they were like last year when they were just slightly off? I feel like that would have been the smart way to apply to it. Maybe it's just the aggro treatment, right? Like, you're obviously, naturally, and I understand this, always right. Mifflin, though, I mean, he was coming in. His pictures were just slightly off. I don't know. Like, it gives you some weird vibes about him. You never know what to expect there.
Yeah, I've earned the ability to force you guys to move your monitors around. Mifflin just wasn't there quite yet.
Turn like that?
Maybe next year it will be the time. Gore, I'll turn a little bit for you. Is this the way? Yeah.
I can tilt it. You're straightforward now. I didn't know my monitor could do that.
Okay, then I'll go back to perfect. Then I'll go back to where I was. This is perfect.
You're no joke. Now, wow. Hey guys, we learn something new every day. If you at home right now, you can try. Tilt your monitors. You never know what you'll find out.
Come to me
as we move forward. Tilt, make aggro a little more aligned. I'll gladly point off into space. I don't necessarily mind. As we go into picks and bans here for game number 3, I'm going to correct that because it's going to bother me otherwise. The kitty cat is back, and so are the Kings and the Dragons as they try to dictate who is going to win this set. Same order as far as we're concerned here. It's going to be the Kings' first pick, as they've been each and every time. Sobek, Mercury, Yanis, that's been the top 3 for them. Dragons have had some fusion of Ra with 2 others. Tiamat, Ymir were last game, Fenrir, Yamoja in game number 1. Do you think there's any necessary changes here? I mean, what do you change? Like, if you're the Kings, you lose that one. Where do you try to make adjustments, or was it not necessarily in the draft?
No, I don't know if it was draft related. I think that when the Dragons just get ahead in a couple of lanes like that, then it becomes pretty difficult to stop them from doing what they're going to do to you. So maybe you switch up something alongside the Merlin. You don't necessarily want to go with that because his level 2 is pretty weak. But it ends up being the Fafnir ban instead this time around. This leaves open the Mercury that has been banned up against Sam so far in this set. But I don't think Sam's going to top 3 that pick necessarily. Certainly not going to top 2 it. Seems like something that can go a little bit later on. So if you want to switch out a ban for something like the Fafnir, I think this does make some sense. But now you leave yourself open by not picking Yemoja in this slot. You have to assume that Mike is just going to go to the Yemoja, Gilgamesh Yemoja here, because it has been Gilgamesh Fafnir top 2 every time.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a support is in the mix for them. You can see, I think Twig trying to formulate it. He was banned out a lot last time. Finrear, that Naja taken away from him, forced the Yearlong Shin. Not necessarily a bad pick for him. Just never got to really show off that much during game number 2. And we'll see if that can change here for him in game 3. And it's very similar style. Both of these junglers don't mind waiting. And it seems like FineOK is going to be the one who changes it up this time. Cucullin going to be locked in. And again, I mentioned this on the desk with Miff earlier. Cucullin has been a favorite this week. When I just look over, there's so many games where he is in the top 3, some of which he's in the number 1 spot, first pick, that it's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, there's only been a few games, it's today, where he hasn't really been in those top spots. So the Dragons making that transition. Do you like this more than the Gilgamesh? Same as the Gilgamesh? I mean, for FineOK, I'm sure it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, I mean, Fine's a great Cucullin player. I'm not that concerned about that. I'm just surprised that they lock it in at this position where the Gilgamesh, I think, has been really fantastic, and the Kings have looked a little lost on how to fight against it at times in these team fights. You expect them to be much more comfortable fighting around something like the Cucullin that they've been practicing against a bunch. And they go Cucullin, Danzaburo, very surprised. This tells me that the Dragons really want to wait on what they're going to do. In the beginning of the year, it was a lot of allowing Mike to counterpick later on in the draft. With the top 2 is Fafnir both games this time around. But with the option for Yemoja open, I think that the Dragons are assuming that it's going to go Genetics' way. I would assume that if I were in their spot. You're kind of just giving up a lot in order to give your players counter picks later on in the draft. I think that the Raijin looks so good for Heroin. I'm a little surprised he didn't go to it early. And that Yemoja pick and the Gilgamesh like we've been talking about as well.
It's one of those questions. I mean, the Yemoja is a very, very phenomenal pick. We've seen what she can do at the highest level of play even. The toppest, not a word. Highest level of play that can come through. We've seen where she can suffer as well, and I think that they're hedging their bets. I mean, Genetics was, 0-6? Maybe something more ridiculous, 0-7 in that last game. And so the Dragons seem to think they can handle that one. The Raijin, though, is going to be swapping to the other foot. The Kings are going to have that coming into their hands as opposed to the Merlin that they had last game. Not a lot that you can say, I guess, pairing with it in terms of frontline, just the Yemoja right now on the side of the Kings, but compared to the Merlin, it kind of feels like at least the Raijin's going to give the Kings a lot more potential to fight.
Yeah, I think so too. It gives you much more aggressive options in the early game while still scaling pretty well into the late. So I like that pickup a good amount. And with that Mercury pick, I was going to say it's got to be a Fenrir ban instantly from the Dragons because Twig, not only has he looked so good on this pick, but it's such a good counter pickup against Mercury. You make his dash feel really underwhelming, and it's hard for him to always have his ult up and charged and ready to use a CC immunity before you pick him up with that Ragnarok. So I think that the jungle bans here by the Dragons make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, being able to go back, it's the same bans as Game 2, right? They're making sure to ban Finrear, Naja, two things that are really, really good for Twig. The Naja really drove things home, and this Finrear has been a targeted ban against Twig for a lot of these teams. And even targeted ban, I think, against the Bolts there for Lazar as well. Like, he's been on the rise. And we just saw what Scary could do with it earlier, so it kind of makes sense when you look at all of the evidence we have. The thing that was interesting to me, though, is we've been seeing a lot of mid bans. It was Scylla Soul, and now Scylla Cerberus that's coming through. Feels like they're trying to get Mike a little more uncomfortable here.
I think so too. I mean, you're looking at what Mike is likely to play from this position. I think the Cerberus ban makes a lot of sense. That's a pick that he's really liked. Gone to the Ares in the past. Don't love that matchup up against Chiron as much as I like it up against the Yemoja. Interesting. So it's Gilgamesh support is the call here by the Jade Dragons. And we haven't seen Gilgamesh in this support role a whole lot. We've seen him in solo now. We've seen him in jungle. He's looked impactful enough to me to warrant continued picks. The support role is one, though, where you need to be getting value out of drop kick every single time because your utility outside of it and your ultimate is fairly low. It's just that slow on the activation of the one. So you're looking for Mike to really find these impactful drop kicks. And how comfortable has he been on this character? As he's fairly new, you know, how comfy is he going to be on that?
This is something that Hindu was talking about a lot on Thursday. Every time we were mentioning it, we were like, well, is it jungle? Is it solo? And he was like, well, I've been seeing it support. It could be really good there. Each time it just kind of skated by going off to any of those other roles. So I'm excited to see how it's going to fare over there. Then again, I mean, I guess theoretically there's a world where it's something like I wouldn't put it past Mike to do a Mercury support, except that Sam is really good at Mercury, and I wouldn't put it past him to try a Cucullin support, except Find OK is really good at Cucullin. So we'll see. More than likely, like you said, this Gilgamesh support that's going to be coming through. Erlong Shin once again there for Twig. And no Cyrus. Ignore those, though. Baba Yaga finally making it through. Look, hey, I'm continuing a list of firsts. This is Baba Yaga's first game this year. Herwin was the one who cracked her out and looked good on her last year. It feels like it might be another good matchup for him.
The Haba Haga comes out, baby. I love it. This is a pick that I think is really good, like legitimately really good. It does take some time to scale. The early game is a little bit weaker. Then you can make the argument that that might not be the style that the Dragons should be playing after how well they dominated the early in game number 2. But they are a much more team fight-oriented draft this time around. And the Baba Yaga does that really, really well. Her damage is hard to predict. It is easy to confirm a lot of the times over a wall, which is huge for her. And you've got some tools to get these warriors off of you. Osiris is one that usually kind of whittles you down. Going into that home sweet home makes it pretty hard for him to stick on top of you. You can put a lot of damage out at the same time. I like this pick a decent amount here for Herwind.
Now, the big question is, at least when we've gotten used to Baba Yaga, and admittedly when I look at this team, it feels like it wants to be aggressive again, but Baba Yaga has been a little slower than what we've seen otherwise. Is this a pick, and is this a draft for the Dragons to do what they just did in Game 2 and just absolutely run over the Kings, or are they playing the long con again?
Likely not. It's more of a late game style of composition. I mean, you want your Baba Yaga and your Mercury to get to late game, but look for this Danzaburo Gilgamesh lane to be very aggressive. That is a lot of kill potential in the duo lane.
There's a lot of kill potential. I'm going to go ahead and throw the curtain back. Mifflin wanted me to throw with Bazinga. I'm going to say it for him, but not throw with it. Let's go down to Game 3.
Appreciate you there,
Bazinga!
All right, Mifflin, you covered your own base. Imagine saying that, and I didn't even have to bet you to say it. You played yourself, Mifflin. Good job. Game 3 kicking off right now between the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons, and in a pivotal Game 3, Mifflin. PB. All right, so we're caught up on the Bazinga. Is that we're starting?
Cast the game, Dave. Come on.
I can't. You're cackling in my ear because you said the word Bazinga. What do you mean? What do you mean, cast the game, Dave? 3 seconds into this game, if when I already off the rails. Look, PBM, he's gone Gilgamesh support here, paired up with Danzaburo. Not the first time we've seen Gilgamesh, but definitely the first time we've seen him in the support role.
I think it's going to mean a much more aggressive rotational path. I don't know how PBM is going to be more aggressive than Game 2. It's going to be an aggressive Game 3 from PBM, but he's going to have to make up for some of the slack out of the rest of his roles, especially a strange decision from the Jade Dragons deciding to go for a much later game draft between the Mercury, who is going to scale and likely move into crit, and Baba Yaga, who, at her best, is generally going for a multi-stack build, means that effectively the Jade Dragons are putting themselves on a timer, saying, all right, look, we're going to bide our time, maybe 15 or so minutes of the game, that's where we're really going to have to do it.
Oh, no.
And already, PBM off to a rough start trying to find that drop kick and does not.
Yeah, missed the drop kick and got tossed aside by Netrioid there. Maybe trying to smooth over some of the lost early game with this aggressive pick in the support are the Jade Dragons. But now it's the Camelot Kings, right? If we're saying now the Jade Dragons have a draft that in jungle and mid specifically, much better into the late game than they were in maybe game number 1. Not that we saw in, or game 2, excuse me. Not that what we saw in game 2 was bad in the late game, but more late game focused, I guess. Then you got to think that the Camelot Kings, maybe Mifflin, feeling like they have a chance to drive this early game a bit.
They could, especially around Captain Twig on this Erlang Shen. Variety should be able to hold his own inside of this lane already, getting the better end of this trade up against Final K and controlling the totem. I think that through and through, the Camelot Kings should have advantage in just about every single lane throughout the early. I mean, Yamoja is one of the highest pressure supports in the game. Netroid's playing one of the highest pressure ADCs right now as well. Big Man Ting should scale much quicker than Baba Yaga. So Camelot Kings, it's really on them to push the envelope for the first 10 or so minutes.
Captain Twig goes Mannequin Scepter here, Mifflin. Something a bit different out of the jungle. Not used to seeing that item picked up. Does that give you any sort of a peek into the mindset of Captain Twig on the Erlang Shen?
Yeah, it's early aggression. Mannequin Scepter is one of the starter items, or one of the only starter items in the game, rather, that essentially is a non-factor after you tick over to level 6, level 7. Levels 1 through 5, it's some of the most damage you can get out of any singular item in the game. After that, though, it's essentially worthless. So Captain Twig should be looking to utilize it right now, and maybe for the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, he's already lost levels 1 through 3, if we're following that train of thought, but still needs that ultimate online, maybe to find some max value here. Could look towards mid lane. We saw a lot of fighting early on in the mid lane. Big Man Tings on the Merlin in game 2 got dove very early on, and that started the snowball. So maybe a chance to do that to hurry when this Baba Yaga is going to need a little bit of time to wind in here. You can already see some of the pressure building up, though, for the Camelot Kings in the duo lane. Genetics and Netroid pushed forward, found themselves a purple buff invade that PBM had to hog in order to secure for his own ADC. So that's maybe a continued trend here, Mifflin, where we figured PBM would be able to get aggressive alongside Panda Cat in this lane, and there's still plenty of time to do so, but it's always going to be hard to get aggressive into a Chiron and a Yamoja, right? It feels like they can just kind of pick and choose when they do and don't want to fight.
But it's not even the Jade Dragon's job to get aggressive. PBM picks a more early game-centric support so that he can just match the output.
What is that reaction time from Netroid? The beads won't be enough here. Sam for Soccer down the lane. First blood over to the Jade Dragons. Could be 2, but a big taunt in from Captain Twig could continue the onslaught here for the Camelot Kings as he found one. He sure has. Amidst all the chaos, Captain Twig finds himself a kill, but it's the up down from PBM to slow things down here, and Genetics gets kicked off onto the back, and here you're finding some of that value from the Mannequin Scepter. Mifflin, could the last bit of burn be enough? Captain Twig's got himself a double. Watch out, Big Man Tings from the mid lane. He's found Sam for Soccer.
But Sam with the juke shoes able to avoid the full first ability. No, ultimate slam. Twig fumbling it here a little bit in game 3. Shame on me for thinking the Jade Dragons wouldn't bring the fight throughout the early game, but look, as far as I'm concerned, now Captain Twig has gotten the full value for Mannequin Scepter. He can transition it into a hidden blade later on, and that's going to scale very well with this god. Camelot Kings, they cannot rest on their laurels, though. They have to keep up this pressure. If this game goes to 30-some-odd minutes, the scaling of the Jade Dragons draft is just strong enough to make up for a poor early game.
Right, lest we forget that Sam for Soccer found first blood here in this game, so a little extra gold on what should be a great scaling pick in this Mercury. That's so hard to read, isn't it? Look, Netroid died there, but I am baffled at how quickly those beads rang through. The fact that Sam for Soccer, with all the speed of Mercury, flies down lane, and Netroid is quick enough to read it. Again, doesn't matter, he dies, but I think just a bit of a toss, a nod maybe to Netroid's reaction time there, but that makes Mercury so difficult to play against. You can just kind of chill way back in those lanes, especially the long lane, and set up for those ganks. It's such a non-traditional style ganking jungler, it can be hard to read.
Yeah, it's one of the few junglers that wards can't really stop. Sometimes when you're playing against Mercury, you have to drop a ward between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower on the opposition side. That's really the only way to stop it.
Oh no, PBM, he's already used his drop kick here and his ultimate, but he'll use his last bit of escape to try to stay alive here. The Taiko drums from Big Man Tings. The last shot is no good, but Captain Twig looking at his third, and he's got a killing spree 6 minutes into this game. A taunt on Hurrywind immediately gets beads out. Hurrywind does not have his ultimate to continue. Sam for Soccer flies through the mid lane, doesn't connect with the ultimate, but Panda Cat is there in order to find the last bit of damage. 1-for-1 trade in the mid.
Man, Camelot Kings are trying to do their best Jade Dragons Game 2 impression by maintaining this pace, and the Dragons not one to let it go without a fight, but the game does, at the end of the day, 6 minutes in, fall out just about dead even. Gold largely equalized experience, not too many gaps inside of this one just yet. About a 1-level lead for Twig, and the same could be said for PandaCat on the opposite side here. But it's really the Jade Dragons that are benefiting from this pace right now. As long as they're able to remain even, they're going to be ahead in the early.
Captain Twig now carrying the weight of game number 3 on his shoulders, you have to feel. He's got himself a triple kill, or not a triple kill, a killing spree in the back pocket. A double kill, though. Not bad to start off here on this game. Greater Scorpion on the left-hand side, getting looked at but oracled out, so slow going maybe for the Camelot Kings. And what a jungle duel we've got going on here, Mifflin. A Mercury up against an Erlong Shen, Captain Twig and Sanford Soccer exchanging blows, and there's a chance for Captain Twig to do more of that here around this purple buff. The pin would have connected, but PandaCat had the beads going. Successful invade, but successful in the sense that the Camelot Kings got the purple buff. Will they pay with it with their lives? Captain Twig locked into place, tossed aside by PBM. The last bit of damage from PandaCat is in time as Hurrywind supplies an assist.
Man, PandaCat's so brave to step back forward, nearly falls down. Hurrywind chasing out Genetics. The Riptide creates a little bit of space, but there's no way he gets out of this one. Hurrywind jumps forward, and a couple monos is all going to take. PBM does it. Nice jump.
Yeah, but watch out now, big man. Tings is starting to rotate over. Should be in range here. Has the Taiko drums. Netrioid does not have mana. Thunder Crash to get himself within range. Raiju is in, but look at the kickback from PBM and then the leap away, and that should be enough to disengage this fight. Well played for Polar Bear Mike. Oh no, but PandaCat, the little rocket around the corner got me all excited, but not enough range, and this one will finally come to an end.
Man, BMT is looking nervous here in Game 3. That's what, the 3rd or 4th ultimate in a row where he's just not landing enough of his shots. Legitimately, just he's swinging at air right now. He's got to clean that up as the game goes on. It hasn't negatively affected his team too much as of yet, but that does not bode well.
Hurrywind is on the wrong side of things, and the Rivers Rebuke will see to it that he goes down to Captain Twig for the 4th kill of the game. No longer a killing spree because the Erlong Shen did die. But still a 4th kill of the game nonetheless. Even in levels with Sanford Soccer, this is a similar trend to what we saw in Game 2, where Sanford Soccer was way ahead in kills, but Twig was doing a good enough job farming to maintain level equity. But this time it's Captain Twig, shot out of a cannon, all 4 of the kills for his team. That's going to give the Greater Scorpion a good look here. The stealth is the Danzaburo as PandaCat closes the gap, and Mercury flies on through. 2nd kill of the game. For second death of the game for Captain Twig, but it's a double kill for PandaCat. 4-1 is the Jade Dragons Hunter.
Bro, they're just fighting all the time. They don't stop. Jade Dragons draft a later game team and say, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Traditional Smite knowledge be damned. We're just going to go ahead and start swinging. And it's working? Question mark. It's absolutely nuts to me that they've been able to dictate the pace with this draft so far. But that's exactly what's been happening. The Camelot Kings tried earlier on to be the aggressors. And the Jade Dragons kind of pushed them down, said, nope, my turn. And they've been doing it better.
This Danzaburo gap closes maybe caught the Camelot Kings by surprise. Only a couple of times we've seen the rocket kind of fly on through, not even as an initiation tool, just something to get PandaCat in range. That time it was the stealth that caught the Camelot Kings a bit off guard. Polar Bear Mike, it was a rough start in that lane, wasn't it? You saw the first drop kick miss and you were wondering how this duo lane would go. But since then, 1, 2, and 4, he's been at the forefront of all but one of the kills that the Jade Dragons have had. And you're maybe starting to see some of the value out of this Gilgamesh support.
I think the damage charts tell a pretty damning story here, man. BMT has been a part of just about every single engagement so far, but lowest on the damage chart. Support's beating him. Everyone beating him. I don't have to run it down here. We need to see more from the talented mid laner. He's been having one of his best years ever. Now's the time to step up. You can't let off the gas here.
He's got a Charon's coin and an immediate item advantage over Hurrywind, and a 1-level advantage as well. So the farm is there for Big Man Ting, still in a position to outperform his counterpart, at least, out of the mid lane. But the rest of the fight around him has got to be going somewhat well for Big Man Tings to be able to find consistent value here. The solo laner's probably looking around, wondering what's going on here, because it has been nothing but ruinous fighting over here on the left-hand side of the map. Variety will make his way back beneath the tier 1 tower here, and no real fighting to be had unless somehow the junglers make their way to the right.
Well, the fight should happen around this Gold Fury, but if the last 11 minutes should be any indicator, the fight can happen legitimately anywhere on the map. Maybe right here.
right here in mid. Seems like a pretty good spot, Mifflin. Polar Bear Mike taken low here, has to use his ultimate. Captain Twig had used his ult, I think, just a minute ago on the back end of the mid Harpies. I maybe sensing somebody was going to be in range for the taunt, looking for
That's
the
his tower!
Dead, but yeah, that is his tower, Mifflin, but it does not matter. It's a rampage for Panda Cat. 11, almost 12 minutes in. The Jade Dragon's Hunter now has his 5th kill of the game.
Someone's got to get a ward between those towers. That's what, the 4th time Stanford Soccer has ulted from between there. I know it's essentially a death sentence, but I think Genetics' life is worth less than a ward would be up there, so might as well get one down so that our boy Netroid can farm. Because legitimately, he can't play any safer. He can't play any safer, man. He's inside his tower. He has to be near the wave. Someone has to help him.
Right, look, they chose Netroid to die. Jade Dragons did. They chose the Gold Fury to die here as well. And Netroid, unfortunately, that time there was no real chance to respond on the fly-through ultimate from Sam for Soccer. Can't believe you just suggested Genetics should just stand between the tier 1 and tier 2
drop
towers
a ward up there.
Ward. No, you said he's worth less than a ward, Mifflin. That is...
Well, yeah, because I'm assuming he's going to die to get the ward down there.
Oh, you weren't suggesting he should just stand there as a ward?
No, that's bad strategic advice.
Yeah, that is just bad advice there from Mifflin. PBM walks in, drops the horrific emblem around the Pyromancer here as Hurrywin floats some damage over the wall. The Pyromancer is delayed now, and the Camelot Kings will scatter to the wind, and the Jade Dragons look no further around the Pyromancer on their own. 13 minutes in here, Mifflin. Hurrywin starting to hit some of those important items. Sam for Soccer is as well, but it's been a sad downward trend since the first few minutes of this game.
Dave, I watched P's and B's, and I was primed to push the narrative of the Jade Dragons just withstanding the early game, just making it through, using their scaling come late, and, well, they've kind of crushed it. We're talking about a 3,000 gold lead for the late-game-centric team. That does not bode well. Sam for Soccer already starting to move into crit. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a rage pickup, and with the pace he's been able to maintain, a part of 5 of 7 kills already, that crit's going to get stacked up pretty quickly, if I had to guess. Camelot Kings cannot let go of the gas pedal, though. They have to keep taking these fights throughout the early. They need to claw it back, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, 3-level difference over in duo lane is going to be difficult for Netroid, and we've already seen that he can get tower dove. Look at Sam for Soccer here. He's chilling. He's walking down lane right now, and Panda Cat's going to find Netroid over on that purple buff. And if Sam for Soccer is in range to capitalize, of course
This is so messed up, bro. Leave him alone!
You gotta laugh at some point. Netroid 0-3, and play it back, says Sam for Soccer and Panda Cat here. That one, you just saw the Mercury icon listing over towards the tier 1 tower and left, and you just knew it was gonna happen.
Someone get a ward down, bro! And Sam's doing it for free! I mean, there are items in the game that can tell you when the opposition is coming your way. I know it doesn't feel great to drop a ward inside a lane or between the towers, but something's gotta give. Netroid's 0-3. I'm talking a 3-level deficit right now for the ADC, and no one has even given him the slightest attempt at help. The Camelot Kings say, alright, Netroid, do your thing. Well, he's doing it the best he can.
Yeah, this has got to feel pretty brutal for Captain Twig as well. He started off 4-1. He was 3-0 at one point. 1-2 over the last bit of time. Probably feels like there's not much to be done, but maybe a blink in towards PBM in the mid lane is something that can be done. Big Man Tings was with the last tick of the Raiju, who ended up picking up a kill. And Captain Twig, as I call his name, helped set up for a kill for the Camelot Kings.
That's one step on a long journey for the Camelot Kings to close up this gap.
It all starts
is a
with one
decent
step.
one. All journeys, even a journey of 1,000 steps, right, Dave? And it is exactly just that, a journey of 1,000 steps. It's going to be tough rolling for the Camelot Kings.
Especially if this one goes successfully for Sam for Soccer and Fine. Okay, solo lane has largely been the lane that's been left untouched here so far this game. Variety will have to use Lord of the Afterlife to leap away, but 3 members of the Jade Dragons are going to get involved here. Hurrywin will eat the slow and instead chooses to run away because now it's Big Man Tings making his way into this fight. The Aegis finding some good value there for Hurrywin, but so will the Escape. Variety with the range damage actually picks up a kill, and it's the Camelot Kings who are swinging first now in this fight. PBM finds big drop kick value here on the back end. Horrific emblem as well, slowing down the Camelot Kings, and it's the Camelot Kings looking more comfortable.
Okay, Captain Twig picks up PBM. The fight continues. Sam for Soccer fights off more than Pikachu. Big Man Tings takes down his life, but fine, okay, able to get Twig.
What happens here? The Jade Dragons feel like, get out of the rocket! Around the corner comes Panda Cat. My man is a level 17 Don Zaburo, taunting Variety back in, but he's a level 17 Don Zaburo on his own. And that is a 3-for-1 trade for the Camelot Kings, and the walk of 1,000 strides, or whatever we were calling it now, maybe only has 500 or so left. It's a small curve down there towards the bottom, but that is an advantageous fight for the Camelot Kings.
Legitimately a massive momentum swing. The Camelot Kings needed that because the Jade Dragons were starting to walk away with this one. Now, the Camelot Kings, with the help of Big Man Tings, have been able to largely equalize this one. 2,000 gold doesn't mean nearly as much as the 3 or 4 that we were looking at just a moment ago. But we still have to worry about the looming threat that we've been concerned about since P's and B's started. Jade Dragons still have a slight lead, and they still will have a late game advantage with their draft.
Right, it sure doesn't get easier for the Camelot Kings, but that was the first real fight where I think Big Man Tings had a chance to feel involved, and he'll maybe have another chance here if he rotates over from mid instead of Sanford Soccer starting off the fight with a big engagement over onto the Camelot Kings, who are able to disengage.
Genetics now drop down to half health, should be able to sustain back up with this Yamoja, but maybe not in time to defend this Gold Fury reset. Do the Jade Dragons, they show just enough face on the side of the Camelot Kings to dissuade this one from continuing onward, and the longer the Dragons wait to re-pull this Gold Fury is more time for Genetics to sustain up his team.
Noni Fury down to half HP. Jade Dragons doing this one quickly. Genetics will be cleansed out thanks to his ADC. And Variety, the Osiris, feeling confidence, got 3 tethered in with him, and both solo laners doing the same thing, fighting with the entirety of the enemy team's roster. Finoke the first to leave, but Variety the first to die. The Jade Dragons have found the opening kill. Finoke could survive here if Captain Twig can't find the damage, and he cannot. Now instead it's the re-engage from the rest of the Jade Dragons on the right-hand side. Big Man Tings has been caught out. Big time fight for the Jade Dragons to regain the lead.
Genetics isolated, you might as well put his tombstone down now. Finoke able to pick up that kill all over the Oni Fury. Camelot Kings step up to defend. Jade Dragons hadn't even pulled it yet, man. It's just legitimately a head scratcher there on why they're willing to take such a disjointed fight. The Camelot Kings at this deficit have to remain grouped if they want to win out on these engagements, and so far they have not.
Yeah, momentum was the word I was looking for there. The Jade Dragons never truly lost the lead, but the momentum had shifted towards the Kings. Captain Twig finds a pin onto Finoke, and will get the taunt, so maybe a chance for a bit of a lazy back from Finoke, and Netrioid grabs his first kill of the game. So now the Chiron is on the board, and Finoke will be able to buy those items just a bit quicker. And there is a slight uptick of golden XP down there at the bottom of the chart. But Mifflin, the fight alone there, not even including the Gold Fury, bought the Jade Dragons about 2,000 gold. So I'm not sure Finoke is too worried about a needless death there.
Man, Sanford Soccer just went in by the way. He didn't care. He burns away Netrioid's beads. Now Variety isolated, caught out by the winds of Shamash. Going to be held down for a little bit. No ultimate available.
Panda Cat near full build here. Still takes a lot to work through the health bar that Variety has built up. This is what we saw last time. It was an engage onto Variety, and that was enough of a bait for the Jade Dragons to get sucked on in, and the Camelot Kings turned around the fight. So I think playing it safe now are the Jade Dragons. The Camelot Kings make the call for the Pyromancer, and they will secure the objective.
If the Camelot Kings ever find a pick, just one, I think at the deficit that they're at and how quickly we're starting to approach the late game phase, they need to start looking for some Hail Mary plays, because so far, every single time they've been able to get something back, all they've done is put a Band-Aid on what is essentially a stab wound. The Jade Dragons are continually pulling further and further ahead. The Camelot Kings are going to need to do something big if they want to drag this one back.
Yeah, it's going to take a big momentum shift, larger than a 3-for-1 trade that we saw earlier. Going to have to do that a couple more times. Hovering around the FG now, sensing the Jade Dragons are in a position to start up the big objective. The Rocket, once again, brings Panda Cat right back into the fray. Variety riptides his way away thanks to Genetics, but the Osiris has been caught out, and the rest of the Jade Dragons will collapse. No way Variety lives, right? It's going to be PBM. He's going to have to finish off the kill, but he's knocked on back. The dispels from Big Man Tings there keeps Variety alive. The fears is good from the Taiko drums, but it's 4 ultimates used on the disengage from the Camelot Kings.
Great disengage. If Variety falls there, Jade Dragons go to Fire Giant easily. Luckily, he's so tanky on this Osiris with a tether, getting that additional mitigation gets him out of that sticky situation. Sanford Soccer was too low HP to use his ultimate to re-engage, so instead, Variety gets to walk out scot-free. Only one ultimate left standing on the side of the Camelot Kings, and that is the 9 turns blessing for Captain Twig, which means that the team fight for the Camelot Kings is largely hamstrung, whereas the Jade Dragons, Panda Cat ultimate coming back up, Sanford Soccer's still maintains his. I think now's an opportunity for them to push the fight.
Yep. Look, Variety is so tanky. We just saw how much it's going to take this guy down, and the Jade Dragons still weren't able to. So I'm intrigued to see how this continues to work on, because this Osiris, not only slippery, but very, very, very hard for the Jade Dragons to deal with up to this point. Sanford Soccer building into crit. It's already got the Rage, near full stacks. Deathbringer on the back end of that as well. We're used to seeing Spectral Armors against Hunters, but depending on the target choice here from Sanford Soccer, could be necessary against the jungler as well. Though, if Sanford Soccer had his way, he would just ult Metroid or Big Man Tings every single time, then 2-shot him in the back line. Variety's the one engaged on now, but he won't be too worried about it. Sustaining himself back up thanks to the Stone of Gaia, and he'll be full HP on the back end of the small skirmish.
Yeah, dropkick is an initiation on a Variety. Just cannot work. That Stone of Gaia passive working for him, but with it down, a little bit easier to get him.
Yeah, 30 seconds away from that passive. Coming back up, Polar Bear Mike has found Variety. A flyby from Sanford Soccer. Trying to crit down Netrioid, but unable to do so as Netrioid dashes away. The Camelot Kings on disengage mode. And they've got to do it quickly. Captain Twig, 9 turns blessing
nice
with
transform.
a heal be enough. Not yet. Final K finds one. Panic Cat with the next. And the onslaught continues here. The Jade Dragons will find 3.
Just crushed him on that engagement. I thought it was strange that the Jade Dragons were deciding to continually engage on a Variety, but they knew once they were able to remove Variety from the fight, it opens up the door. Close gap on a Genetics, close gap on a Captain Twig. No peel coming their way, makes for easy shutdowns. 3 for 0 in favor of the Jade Dragons. And Fire Giant at the 23-minute mark, that's free food.
Yeah, no surprise here that the Jade Dragons go on over towards FG. All the Camelot Kings surviving members can do is farm up their respective lanes. Now, at 24 minutes into the game, the Jade Dragons have bought themselves 8,000 gold in the advantage. Level 20 starting to get reached by a few members of the Jade Dragons as well. Big Man Tings reached level 20 before Hurrywind, for what it's worth. So this Raijin had found some value in that small mid-game fight, but just got jumped on there by the rest of this Jade Dragons team. 1 tier 2 tower left in mid, Mifflin. Then we're looking at the Camelot Kings Phoenix defense.
I think we might see the Jade Dragons go ahead and pick up a Primal Fury on the way, but the Camelot Kings going to try their best to burn it before they're able to get there. Outside of that, tier 2 tower defense, I don't think the Camelot Kings digging their heels there. It's a little bit too risky with this dive comp.
Polar Bear Mike was close, but not attempting to steal. Instead, he's attempting to engage. Over onto Genetics, and why wouldn't you? A rocket through the storm, and it's Panda Cat who will weave some auto attacks in. Genetics able to walk away from this one. The dropkick into the wall has been consistent from PBM up to this point. Variety in behind Final K and Polar Bear Mike. Captain Twig is there as well, but tanky enough to just walk beneath the Phoenix line.
But now Genetics has yet to get back to base, needs to return to get that Omi and HP stacked back up, so the Jade Dragons do enough just by showing face around the gold free to buy the time to get a completely uncontested tier 2 tower. Now, it's just the 3 Phoenixes exposed on the side of the Camelot Kings, standing between the Jade Dragons and the Titan. The defense is strong. Keep your eyes on BMT. He's going to have to step up in a big way here. He's the sole source of poke damage on the side of the Camelot Kings, besides Netrioid, who might have to use his ultimate to keep people out here. But the Jade Dragons are playing it slow. They're not grouped up just yet. And instead, Sanford Soccer, doing his best Saitama impression, takes out the Pyromancer in short work.
My man beat the living hell out of the Pyromancer, goes back, picks up a Bloodforge for himself. I think that's a smart pickup here for Sanford Soccer. You saw an engage a minute ago where he found Netrioid, was able to get a couple shots in there, but then Netrioid ran away and Sanford Soccer was left at about half HP, so a Bloodforge is maybe going to open up the door for a little bit of an extended engagement for the Jade Dragons jungler here. Maybe there's a world, Mifflin. I mean, look, this game, what was it, 20-6 was where we were at this point in game number 1, something close to that. It's a little bit closer, right? It is definitely not as out of control, or kind of getting close to that, but maybe not as out of control as game 1 was, or game 2 was at this point. So the Camelot Kings may be feeling a bit better underneath their Phoenix, but With the game Panda Cat is having as well, we've given Sanford Soccer a good shout-out. Panda Cat is 6-1-6. This Don Zaburo has consistently been connecting throughout this game. Unless the Kings have a way to get in there into the backline, it's going to be so hard. Maybe that's the way. Maybe it's a three-man
Huge
con
ult!
from Captain Twig. Big damage coming through from Big Man Tings. Netroid finds the opening kill, and it's Hurrywind that goes down. Final K, though, returns the favor, and Netroid falls in reply. It's a big-time roar now, forcing Genetics on back. Panda Cat's still alive, and that means the Phoenix will fall.
3-man 9 turns blessing into a 3-man Rivers Rebuke is what is able to slow down the push of the Jade Dragons, and that's all it did was slow it down. They got Hurrywind, but still 4-man core of the Jade Dragons, relatively healthy, still could look for a fight here.
Sanford Soccer being looked at by Variety. PBM drop kicks Variety into Sanford Soccer. Sanford Soccer will dash away. Beads is out the stun, sensing that the Osiris would have enough damage to finish off this Mercury, despite it being 27 minutes in. Now the rest of the Jade Dragons collapse in. No Hunter for one side, no mid laner for the other. Captain Twig dies to Sanford Soccer, and there's a stun connecting onto Variety as well. And how fast will that Osiris melt? Not fast enough, but the Jade Dragons have other thoughts in mind.
Yeah, that thought is Big Man Ting. Sanford Soccer picks up his second one, and this route should spell the end of Variety, but a nice Riptide buys him some time.
Sanford Soccer a few crits away from a triple kill, but the Jade Dragons not concerned about multi-kills. Instead, they're worried about Game 3. They're worried about this set, and they're just a bit of damage away from locking it in. Netroid, he's respawned. He's found the first kill. The Titan has found another. Sanford Soccer working in. Netroid's got big. Triple kill for Netroid, but Panda Cat's in it. He's unstoppable. Has to use the Aegis. Can he out DPS the
Oh my God.
And the Jade Dragons will take Game 3.
What is it about this weekend and these nail-biting Titan
and it's
finishes,
me.
man?
Give me a break,
Netroid
Give me
tried
a
his
break.
best. He tried his best. Dave, you earned your break, bud. That's the last game of the set, man. Congratulations to the Jade Dragons, but the Camelot Kings did not make it easy. Even from that much of a deficit, that was an incredibly close game.
Netroid, a near miracle defense there underneath his own Titan, but come up just a little bit short. Look, this Camelot Kings, they go toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the league here. They are the Camelot Kings, one of the best teams in the league as well. Still plenty of games to turn around this group for them. But the Jade Dragons, after a rocky game number 1, turn around games 2 and 3, and they'll take this set. That means Mifflin and I get to take a little break, and the desk will break this one down.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SMITE Pro League, powered by Alienware. And one last time, at least today, we want to thank Alienware for coming on board as our exclusive title sponsor. For those of you curious and you've seen the video, our pros are playing on the powerful Aurora R10 Ryzen desktop alongside that Alienware 25-inch 240Hz gaming monitor. Make sure you check out all of their awesome products at smitegame.com/Alienware. Click on your region and use code SMITEAW for special discounts. Thanks again to Alienware for partnering with us for the SBL here in Season 8. Make sure you go check out their products. Give them a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware. And join the global community at AlienwareArena.com for giveaways and more. And aggro and more is going to be what that set was. It just kept giving and giving and giving. I feel like I used that one already today, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to keep going for it. As things transition, I mean, looking at the way the kills come through, the Dragons, whatever was going through their mind in Game 1 to the point where you were even like, where are you looking at? What are you doing? Why are there Winions in your base right now? They just pushed it all out of their mind and decided to dominate Game 2s and 3.
Man, the side lanes in this one just went absolutely nuts. This Danzaburo and the Kukulkan pick, I mean, we were questioning whether or not Fine should really be switching it up after he played so well on the Gilgamesh, but when he's going to do that on Kukulkan, I think you're going to take it no matter what. Fine played so well. Panda really got off to a great lead, and it's just like Game 2 where he's able to make a big difference in these team fights, whereas Netrui just could not match the damage output that Panda was dealing on this Danzaburo. I think the side laners really made the difference here in Game 3.
I mean, PandaCat had an insane game. We got to see a lot. Look, I'm going to give a lot of credit to it. You know, it was banned a couple of games in a row there. This Mercury for Sam is absolutely going to tear through people. But right now, Danzaburo, I mean, he has not been incredibly successful up to this point. PandaCat making it look incredibly good throughout this one. And of course, even the Aegis, there was a very close portion of this game where maybe we'd be still kind of sitting in it if they end up dying there towards the very end to the Titan. And despite Twig 5-5-5 doing the best, Netroid 5-5-2 trying to get some of those kills up, it's very difficult to compete with 7-2-9 there for Sam, 7-1-11 there for PandaCat, as well as FineOK and PPM. The amount of space and control they set up really just made it feel easy to the point where Herwind existed this game, and I feel like we got to see some good damage, 15,000 out of him, but it wasn't as much as what we saw from everybody else.
No, definitely not the Habahaga's best game of all time. But he was doing a lot of damage to the early to mid game. Think that he kind of got zoned out of some fights come later on. But at the end of the day, he did his job. It was really just facilitating what Panda and Fine were doing in this game. Sam, as you mentioned, and Mike was creating a ton of space. I was wondering how comfortable he'd look on that Gilgamesh. Besides a couple early ints over there in duo, he looked really, really good in the team fighting phase of that god.
I think easy to say everybody on the Dragons played exactly what they needed to there in the very end. And the Raijin as well as the Baba Yaga doing exactly the job they were needed for in Games 2 and 3 and helped facilitate the win there. In fact, we have Herwind standing by to talk about that win for the Dragons as well as everything else that's been going on in the SBL.
Herwind, an absolutely key piece of the puzzle here for the Jade Dragons. First off, congrats on winning your first game in the group, Herwind. This one very important as well over the Camelot Kings. Standings-wise, the biggest opponent here in this group. We'll get to that, though, a little bit later. Talk to me a bit about the mentality, though, because, look, Game 1, you're in the trenches. It's a 40-something minute game. Doesn't go your way. And then you just kind of steamroll the Kings in two back-to-back games. What's kind of the mentality shift that happens there that causes a big swing like that?
You know, we don't really change our mentality, I'd say. I say we just stick more to the game plan that we wanted to do originally. You know, the first game, I think we just had some bad back timings and maybe a little bit of a misdraft. So we didn't really have to change our mentality at all. We just kind of stuck to what we thought is good and right to do and kind of tightened up our game plan. And it played out like how more we'd expect the second and third games.
Right, and that mentality is the early game in your face. Of course, you guys fantastic in the late game as well. But we were kind of surprised, admittedly. You lock in Mercury, you lock in Baba Yaga, and we're assuming that this is a game that's kind of destined to reach that late game point. Do you guys think that as a team, you're ever really, are you ever really just saying, no, we don't care about this early game, we have Mercury, we have Baba Yaga? Are you always looking to make plays regardless throughout every phase, despite having a draft that flourishes maybe a bit later on?
Yeah, I just think a good team, regardless of your draft, should be ready to make plays anywhere on the map, regardless of whether you consider your team comp to be early game or late game. I don't think Merc or Baba are necessarily bad characters in like the early mid game, especially when they have their ults as well. Like playing around Mercury ult, like he might succeed in late game, start one-shotting people, but he's putting a lot of pressure on the map as soon as his ult's up. And I'm just being difficult to kill as Baba Yaga as soon as I hit 5. And so we can kind of play up and do anything anywhere, even though our comp looks late game, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a great point. Poor Netrioid learned that one the hard way. Kind of final thoughts here. Agra said it on the desk there. Are you bought into the Haba Haga rename for you on Baba Yaga, or do you have other thoughts in mind?
Not after that game. Well, I had a good after that last death. I just thought I just kind of threw the game. It was kind of like honestly probably my worst play in this set, just getting caught in the emoji walls like that. So maybe I don't deserve it after that game. Maybe give me one more redemption game. Hopefully I'll be able to run it back some point before the season's over, and you can rename it if you want. No one else is going to pick it anyway, so.
No one else, you imagine. Well, Hurrywin, congrats on the first win in your group yet again. Look forward to seeing you guys back in action here shortly. That's it, though, for this week in the SPL, and that means the desk will take us home.
Thanks, Olsen.
And exactly what he said. No one else is going to pick it. In fact, I looked it up. Someone had asked on Twitter during the intervening time in that game, but Baba Yaga's pretty much only been played by Hurwin. The only player that has played her other than him.
Ooh, I know it.
Once last year. Do you know it?
It's Big Man Tings.
Yeah, and they just got beat. Even though it was not on the Baba Yaga, he did get taken down. He played her once last year, and I had to go look for it because I was like, man, Hurry's played it 3 times. There's 4 picks in Season 7. Where is number 5? And yeah, it was that Radiance roster that locked her in. Something that you can only expect to see potentially from the Dragons. Maybe something to expect to see in the future as well. But here is the week at large. Those first 2 days, the end of the quote-unquote Phase 1 round robin. Everybody making sure they get a game against everybody there. And then June 5th there on the side, pretty much the last 4 sets you see start the group stage. Group A, Group B in that order, kind of mirroring each other. As we enter a very interesting portion of this game league as of right now. All of the standings from the first portion of this phase just kind of dictated where your seating would be and to determine who was choosing what for these groups. These are the standings that you need to pay attention to now and be worried about going into the future. Top 3 from each group will go to the playoffs. The bottom 2 from each group will end up having to stay home and watch the playoffs from afar, wistfully thinking about what they'd be doing if they were in that position. And aggro a couple of teams that are right now, granted, only 0-1, but tied at the bottom. You might not expect to see down there. The Kings, the Leviathans, are definitely going to need to pick up some wins in order to make sure that they don't get knocked out.
Yeah, I think both those teams definitely disappointed with how this has started. This group stage has started for them, but look, the Leviathans and the Kings are going to be able to right the ship sooner rather than later. I've got pretty good confidence on that.
Now, a little more worries, more focus here. Scarabs, Valkyries. They lost their first set, what we were kind of touting as must-wins for them, since they were maybe the easier, quote-unquote, opponent that they'd be able to face. But the Scarabs going up against the Dragons this Thursday, a matchup they won before, and something that I think they're going to keep in mind, but they don't want to get too far ahead of themselves. They're also going to be facing the Kings a little bit later on. The Valkyries have the Bolts, have the Leviathans lined up. But the whole point is everyone plays everyone. These last 2 days withstanding, you're going to see a whole ton of SPL next week. Another 8 matches, plus the SCC that comes through. And I'm trying to glance through. There's so many good games in that one. Leviathans versus Titans. Thursday feels like it'd be maybe a must-watch. Granted, they're all kind of a must-watch at this point.
Yeah, they are. I mean, this league has been so close. You clearly can't count anybody out. I think everyone's starting to play a lot better Smite. You got to tune in because you can't afford to miss any of these matches.
It's been exciting. It's been fun to watch. We've got a lot of cool milestones, I think, still on the horizon for a lot of these players. Plus, just over the horizon, if you can look just past next week, you start to see the playoffs in their full glory that we'll be able to see. I'm excited for that point, but of course, thank you everyone for watching. We will be back Thursday, 1 p.m. for the SBL. Make sure you're there, and we'll see you then.
Peach it.